Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first meeting for the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor for the 79th session. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Assemblyman Paul Anderson.
Here.
Assemblyman Orojo. Assemblyman Brooks.
Here.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Here.
Assemblyman Daly.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblyman Hanson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdegay.
Here.
Assemblyman Kramer.
Here.
Assemblyman Marchant.
Here.
Assemblywoman Neal.
Here.
Assemblyman Orenshaw.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Chair Bustamante Adams.
Present. And if you could mark those members as they arrive, if you can mark them present. We have enough to have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to thank Speaker Frierson for the appointment to be able to be the chair for this committee. Along with the Money Committee, I think that this committee has an enormous amount of work that affects the economic vitality of the state. And so together as a group, we're going to determine what is best to move Nevada forward. With that, I'd like to welcome the members in Las Vegas who are present during video conference, also those here in Carson City and those who are going to be following us online as well. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the members of our committee and our staff. First, I'd like to recognize to my left our amazing Vice Chair, Mrs. Maggie Carlton. She has served on the committee for the past 3 sessions and for 6 sessions prior to that in the Senate Commerce Committee. And so she has the institutional knowledge that I value as a person, but also our entire body. There are 6 other additional members who have served on this committee previously. Mr. Daly, Speaker Frierson, Mrs. Neal, Mr. Orenshaw, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Hanson. Our new members are Mr. Arajo, Mr. Brooks, Mrs. Howdegay, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Marchant, and Mrs. Tolles. Please let's extend a sincere welcome to our new members. Next, I'd like to introduce, I have a phenomenal team, I just want to tell you, and this time I get to lead a team of all women that are helping us in this committee. First, I'd like to introduce my personal attaché. If you could please stand up, my legislative aide, and then I'll go to the staff. Sonia Mendez. So if you need to get a hold of me, that's the person to connect with. Prior to working as my assistant, she was also my campaign manager during the 2016 election cycle. She's originally from Los Angeles and has been a Nevadan for the past 8 years. When she's not working, Sonia enjoys reading, sports, and staying warm. Once session is over, she would like to complete her degree in nursing. Next, Sonia, stay standing. My legislative aide, Irma Fernandez. This is Irma's first session. Previously, she worked as the finance director for the Assembly Democratic Caucus. Irma is born and bred in Texas and has lived in Brazil on a Fulbright scholarship. You can usually find her trying to watch either soccer or basketball or listening to a podcast or reading The New Yorker. Next is Judy Bishop, our committee manager for Commerce and Labor. She retired in 2012, and in 2013 was committee manager for Assembly Taxation, which I also shared. She was also my personal attaché then as well. This will be her 7th session. Judy lives in Northern Nevada since 1980 and has 1 daughter and 2 grandkids. She is also part of a local clogging dance group. So those that want to dance, Judy's your gal. And she celebrated her 45th wedding anniversary last September. Olivia Lloyd, she is our committee assistant, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. She moved to Nevada more than 30 years ago. This is her 6th session as a committee assistant, so she is our expert. So please let her know that if she can be of any assistance. Erlene Miller, she's our committee secretary. This is her 6th session. Prior to her retirement, she was a social worker and an assistant executive director of a private nonprofit foster care agency. She has resided in Nevada since 1974. She and her husband of 48 years have 3 kids and 5 grandkids. She enjoys traveling, snorkeling, quilting, and being with her family. Pamela Carter, our other committee secretary, she has worked in healthcare compliance for over 30 years, both at the federal and state level, and works closely with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. She has worked on new facility development for human acute care hospitals in 7 states and long-term care and rehabilitative facilities in Nevada, Arizona, California, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. She enjoys golf, hiking with her dogs, and classical piano. Catherine Keever, our 3rd committee secretary. This is her first session. She has a background in education and grant writing as a 4th-generation Nevadan. She has 2 kids. She enjoys hot air ballooning and serves as a volunteer at a hot air balloon camp, which teaches ballooning skills to youth. She also enjoys learning about Nevada history, gardening, and reading. Kelly Richards, here to my right, is our policy analyst. She has worked for LCB since 2004. She previously served as staff for the Senate Committees on Commerce and Labor, Economic Development, and Transportation. She is a graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno, and holds a degree in political science and a master's degree in business administration. Kelly lives in Reno with her husband and 4 of their 5 kids. Their oldest recently enlisted in the United States Army. Will Keene, to my left, is our legal counsel. He has worked with LCB for 19 years and received his law degree from Yale Law School and is a member of the Nevada and California Bar Associations. He serves as the committee counsel for the Assembly Commerce in 2003, for the Senate Commerce Committee in 2007, and for numerous interim committees and other standing committees. He also served for several years as the Chief Litigation Counsel and for several legislative sessions as a supervising attorney for the team of attorneys within the legal division. Will and his wife live in Reno. Let's give these individuals a round of applause. And Judy, if you could come to the mic right there where Erlene is. I want to talk about the small gift that you have in front of you. I am fortunate to have such a creative team this session, and so Judy will explain the little small gift that's in front of each member's computer.
We wrote a little poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. This homemade blueberry jam was brought in just for you. Using an old family recipe, well, actually, a friend of mine scored 10 flats of fresh blueberries last fall, and so we turned them into this wonderful blueberry jam. Please enjoy on toast, pancakes, or even warmed up and poured on ice cream. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Our first business of the day is to review and approve our committee policies. I'll ask Mrs. Richards to go over the policies and give a quick overview of Assembly Standing Rule number 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Kelly Richards. So I'm going to start with Assembly Standing Rule number 54 and just go over that briefly. The chair has asked that the members and the public who are testifying before the committee follow the outline in Rule number 54 as it pertains to support, opposition, and neutral. So if you're testifying in support of a bill, that means you either approve the measure as written or you approve the measure as written along with proposed amendments that have been okayed by the sponsor of the bill. If you're in opposition, that means you don't support the measure as written and or you have an amendment that has not been approved by the sponsor. If you're in neutral position on a bill or resolution, it means that you're just offering information, but you don't take a policy stand one way or the other on the bill. So please make sure that when you come up to make your remarks that you do so during the appropriate time. So as we go forward, the proponents of a particular measure will get 15 minutes to make their pitch regarding the bill. After that time, if you're in support, opposition, or neutral, you'll have about 4 minutes to discuss the bill. And you'll want to keep any public comment restricted to the bill itself And then at the end, when we have our public comment period, you'll want to keep that restricted to what we've talked about in the committee. Now I'll go into the standing policies of the committee, and this will be really standard and familiar to you, as you've probably heard it several times already in the last week. So the exhibit supporting documents and handouts need to be submitted electronically to the committee manager 5 p.m. the day before the meeting. That's the same as all the other committees in the standing rules. Make sure you have your name, the name of the organization that you represent, and your contact information so we can get a hold of you if we have questions or we have a problem uploading your document. If you have an amendment, same thing. What's your intent, your contact information? The chair might need additional information before we can allow inclusion in the public record. So that's another reason why your contact information is so important. If you're going to use a PowerPoint presentation, that's fine. Please make sure that you bring that on a flash drive and still give it to the committee manager by 5 o'clock the day before. You'll also need to bring 20 copies, paper copies, so that the members of the public who may not have access to Nellis can grab a copy and see what you're talking about as we move through the bills. Please make sure that you put your name and the organization you represent on the sign-in sheet so that we have a complete record of everyone who's come to attend the meeting. When you come up to testify, please state your name for the record and who you represent, if appropriate. If you do have a bill that you're bringing before the committee, or you know of someone who needs to testify from another location, please reach out to the committee manager as soon as possible so we can get video conferencing set up and get a larger room if needed. And laptops and handhelds need to be silenced and muted during committee meetings. I think everybody's already familiar with that.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. And just one last housekeeping item. Our committee is scheduled to meet Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1:30, and that's upon adjournment of the assembly floor session. So just to let the members know so that people could be on time. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move to subcommittee appointment. I'm going to go ahead and appoint a subcommittee on energy. During the last two sessions, this committee has spent a substantial amount of time discussing changes to our state's energy policy. These changes have profoundly affected our economy and our utility bills of our constituents, often affecting the consumers least able to afford the increases. The subcommittee on energy will provide a venue where we can more closely examine the various energy bills referred to our committee. Meeting throughout session, the subcommittee will take a deep dive into the current energy policy and a hard look at new proposals. The subcommittee will meet on Mondays and Wednesdays at 4 p.m. here in room 4100 and will be composed of myself, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Araujo, Mr. Brooks, Mrs. Carlton, Mrs. Howdigi, and Mrs. Tolles. Mr. Brooks will serve as the chair of the subcommittee. The first meeting is scheduled for Monday, February the 13th. Sure, I'll repeat the list. So it would be myself, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Araujo, Mr. Brooks, Mrs. Carlton, Mrs. Howdigi, and Mrs. Tolles. And then Mr. Brooks will serve as the chair of the subcommittee. So let me give an overview of the agenda today. If I can find it. There it is. Okay, we are going to have two presentations today. One of the largest group of bills that we will hear have to do with boards and commissions that affect this state. And so we will have a presentation from the Sunset Subcommittee and also from the Legislative Audit Division. Then we will move into three other presentations regarding boards, the medical examiners, the osteopathic medicine, and also the Board of Nursing. Then we will move into a bill, AB 18, and have that presentation, also those in support, those who oppose it, and those who are in neutral. And then we will close with public comment. So if I'd like to ask Mrs. Stonefield, Mr. Cooper, and Mrs. Ryan to come to the witness table and just state your name for the record, and you can begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Carol Stonefield, and I'm a research analyst with the Research Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. I have been the policy analyst to the Sunset Subcommittee for the last couple of interims, and so I am here at the request of the Chair to give you a brief background on the Sunset Subcommittee itself. The subcommittee was established in 2011 with the passage of Senate Bill 251, and it had bipartisan support. It grew out of a recommendation from the SAGE Commission, which is the Spending and Government Efficiency Commission that was created about 2006 or so, 7 perhaps. It was under Governor Gibbons. The subcommittee consists of 6 legislative members. There are 3 senators who are appointed by the majority leader and 3 assembly members who are appointed by the speaker. There are 3 additional non-voting, non-legislative members who are nominated by the governor and then appointed by the chair of the Legislative Commission. The Sunset Subcommittee is codified in NRS 232B, and it has the responsibility to review all boards, commissions, committees, councils, authorities, panels, and similar entities that are created by statute. So it is specifically outside of its purview are those boards and commissions that are created in the Constitution, such as the Board of Regents, or that are created by executive order. The Sunset Subcommittee is required by statute to make its recommendations to the Legislative Commission. And as it reviews any boards and commissions, it is charged with recommending that the board should be continued, modified in some way, that is, amendments to the NRS statutes that govern it, consolidated with another entity, or terminated, and if terminated, to possibly recommend that its responsibilities and functions be transferred to another entity. In the 3 interims that the Sunset Subcommittee has been functioning, it has reviewed 91 individual boards, and three of those have been before the subcommittee twice. In the first 2 interims, it recommended terminating 13 entities, modifying 15 boards and commissions, and consolidating 2 licensing boards into 1. In this most recent interim, it also recommended terminating another 6 entities, modifying 10 more, and consolidating 2 authorities that regulate transportation into 1 new department. Those are, of course, proposals before the 2017 legislature. The chairs, and Assemblywoman Bustamante Adams has been the chair of the subcommittee in the past. The chairs have permitted the members to select the boards and commissions that they wish to review. In the 2013-14 interim, Chairwoman Bustamante Adams made a concerted effort to identify inactive boards. And so we searched the statutes, any other records that we could find to see which ones haven't had members for a long time or haven't met for a long time. And then Senator Settlemyre, who was the chair in the most recent interim, also continued that review of inactive boards. Of those inactive boards, there were a couple that were actually reactivated, such as the Nevada Commission for Women. Once it seems that some of them get some focus or attention on them, then there's an interest in reconstituting it. And so the Nevada Commission for Women has been reactivated. Another example is the new Energy Industry Task Force, which proceeded to meet in the last interim. Some have been terminated and their responsibilities transferred to another entity. And a number of those that were inactive were in the, they were located or assigned to the Department of Health and Human Services. We received testimony from representatives of that department that there were actually, they were trying to deal with so many advisory committees and so on that they couldn't find people who were actually interested in serving on them. And this was another interesting bit of information for the Sunset Subcommittee, is that because some of these, especially the advisory committees and councils, have no budgets, they have no funds, the members receive no reimbursement for their expenses typically. And so sometimes the departments have difficulty in finding people who have the resources and the time to serve on them. So there were, an example of one of those was the Advisory Committee on the Arthritis Prevention and Control Program. So when the Sunset Subcommittee recommended that it be terminated, it also recommended transferring those responsibilities to something that you might see from time to time, the CWCD, which has a very long name. It stands for the Advisory Council on the State Program for Wellness and the Prevention of Chronic Disease. And so CWCD seems to work. But where there is a responsibility to a committee or a board that the Sunset Subcommittee has in the past recommended for termination, it has also recommended that those responsibilities be transferred to another entity. And some of the ones that they recommended for termination have been, are just obsolete. They haven't had members for some of them we've found perhaps 20 years or so since the last time there was anything on the record. The Research Library works with us to search its records, the records of the State Library, the records of the State Archives, to see if we can find anything about how it was that this particular board or commission was created in the first place, when was the last time that it had members, and so on. And in the hearing procedures, the subcommittee always provides each entity with an opportunity for a public hearing. Representatives of the board or commission are given an opportunity to comment, and the subcommittee has adopted a questionnaire that every board and commission that is under its review is requested to complete. And in addition to the questionnaire, they're also asked to submit their most recent minutes of the last 6 meetings, their budgets, financial statements, if they have any regulations pending before the Legislative Commission, or anything else that might be of value to the subcommittee in understanding the functions of that board or commission and what its purpose is. The other part of that hearing is that the Sunset Subcommittee gives every board and commission an opportunity to make requests for revisions to its statutes. And so very often the Sunset Subcommittee will accept those, adopt those recommendations, and forward them along. Some of these boards and committees have not been before the legislature in a long time. And so it's actually an opportunity for them to present to the legislative committee who they are, what they do, and if they think there are recommendations that would enable them to operate more efficiently. And we've actually had 1 or 2 over the interims who have requested to be terminated because they felt that their purpose was no longer of value, or that it was timely any longer for the people of Nevada. There is also an opportunity for public comment, and in the last interim, the public comment has drawn a significant number of people who wanted to speak about issues that are before the committee. There have been some interesting examples of issues that the subcommittee considered. For example, in 2011-12, it reviewed the Nevada State Funeral Board. The subcommittee recommended that the board be terminated because of its concerns about operations. The legislature, when that legislation came to it, decided not to terminate that board, but actually to reconstitute it into the Funeral and Cemetery Services Board, a whole new staff, new members, and then it also directed that board to report to the Sunset Subcommittee for the following interim. So the subcommittee does continue its review of boards. It wants periodic status reports of what it is that these boards are doing if there are recommendations for changes. In 2013-14, the Sunset Subcommittee recommended that because there were concerns about people who get licenses from the Board of Examiners for Audiology and Speech Pathology and the hearing aid specialists, and some of these people were holding dual licenses. It seemed to be an inefficient service to the people of Nevada, and so they recommended consolidating the 2 boards, and this is another one that the Sunset Subcommittee continued to monitor throughout the next interim and receive periodic reports from them. In the 2015-16 interim, Sunset reviewed several entities that drew a lot of public comment, including the Taxi Cab Authority, the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, Another board that received considerable comment was the Board of Dental Examiners, and because of the subcommittee had some concerns about operations, they requested an audit from the legislative auditor. The subcommittee has the authority in the NRS to request up to 4 audits in any biennium. This last interim was the first time that it has exercised that prerogative and requested an audit of the Board of Dental Examiners. It was a very specific and limited audit. And then the subcommittee also looked at the Board of Oriental Medicine, and this was for the second time in 3 interims. It also had some concerns about the operations of the board, and it has made recommendations for some changes, and also, again, that if the legislature agrees to this, that this board would be continued, monitored by the subcommittee into the next interim. So, Madam Chair, that is a brief summary of the activities of the Sunset Subcommittee. Some of these boards are very old and go back into the late 1800s. They may not have been reviewed by the legislature in a long time. And so this is something that's giving the legislature an opportunity to look into these boards. It gives the boards an opportunity to present before a legislative committee. The Sunset Subcommittee has also another bill. It might not come before this committee, but it has recommended that it be allowed to extend the period that it operates. It is currently provided by statute to complete its work by June 30th and make its recommendations. It has requested that it be allowed to work further into the interim. Other statutory committees report their findings by August 31st, and so that's one of the suggestions that you will need to consider probably during this interim. And Madam Chair, with that, I am happy to turn it over to the legislative auditor. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Stonefield. We'll pause. Are there any questions from the members? Okay, seeing none, we'll turn it over to Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to be here today. For the record, I'm Rocky Cooper, Legislative Auditor, and with me today I have Shannon Ryan. She's an audit supervisor with our office. Shannon oversees the audit division's functions related to licensing boards, and she was also the supervisor for the Board of Dental Examiners audit, which we issued in May 2016. The audit division provides oversight of licensing boards in 2 ways. First, by conducting performance audits. The main function of the audit division is to conduct performance audits in accordance with government auditing standards. And the audit of the Board of Dental Examiners is a good example of a performance audit where we were able to address concerns by the Sunset Subcommittee. The second way we assist the legislature in its oversight of licensing boards is to review financial audits. We no longer perform financial audits within our office because the legislature felt, or we felt that the legislature wasn't getting the information they needed, so we moved to performance audits so we can provide more accountability in state government. And we do review financial information required to be submitted to our office by December 1st of each year, and Shannon will go over the results of our review of this information in a few minutes. Regarding performance audits and the audit of the Board of Dental Examiners, it's important to note that the purpose of performance audits is to improve state government by providing the legislature with independent and reliable information about the operations of state agencies, programs, and functions. Performance audits provide an objective analysis to improve program performance, reduce costs, facilitate decision-making, and contribute to public accountability. The objectives of performance audits are generally intended to answer questions regarding program efficiency and effectiveness, internal controls over key functions, and compliance with laws and regulations. In the case of the Board of Dental Examiners, our audit objective, as requested by the Sunset Subcommittee, was to determine whether the board has assessed reasonable costs to licensees for investigating and resolving complaints and disciplinary matters. This objective was intended to address concerns that the costs of investigations charged to licensees were excessive in relation to the matter being investigated. I'd like to provide a short summary of what we found. Our audit concluded the board did not always assess reasonable costs to licensees for investigating and resolving complaints in disciplinary matters. For example, the board overcharged licensees for its investigative costs in almost half of its investigations, and some were over $1,000. 4 licensees agreed and approved stipulation agreements to donate over $140,000 to organizations that provide health-related services, and these charitable contributions are not allowed by statute, and they were not recorded on the agency's books. The board exceeded its approved contract amount for legal services. The contract approved by the Board of Examiners was for $175,000 per year, but the board paid over $300,000 per year. The board could also save over $100,000 per year by hiring a general counsel instead of contracting for legal services. And regarding the board's investigation process, we found investigations results and conclusions were not reviewed by supervisors or an independent review committee, whereas other states' dental boards and the Nevada medical boards that we contact had a review process in place to verify conclusions and recommendations are based on clear and sufficient evidence. We also found the board did not maintain critical documentation related to the disciplinary process, and it lacked an organized filing method for record keeping. In this audit, we had 14 recommendations to improve the board's operations. The success of performance audits often depends on the legislature's support. I want to express my appreciation to the chair for her support of our audit of the dental examiners at the Sunset Subcommittee meetings. And I'd also like to thank Assemblywoman Carlton, who has served on the Audit Subcommittee since 2011, both as chair and vice chair. Regarding financial statement audits are much different than performance audits. The purpose of financial statement audits is to determine whether an entity's reported financial condition is presented in accordance with recognized criteria. Financial statement audits provide an independent assessment or opinion of whether the entity's reported financial information is presented fairly and free of material misstatement. Financial statements provide information about board assets such as cash, liabilities such as accounts payable, revenues such as license fees collected for boards, and expenditures such as payroll. Therefore, this type of audit is not focused on making recommendations to improve the agency's operations. For example, the financial audit of the Board of Dental Examiners contained no recommendations. I don't want to diminish the value of financial audits because they do play an important role. Financial audits do provide valuable information so that board members and others can understand a board's financial activities and financial condition. In addition, financial audits would report if fraudulent transactions have been identified by the entity or the auditors. And some financial statements include recommendations to improve controls over financial reporting. Related to our oversight of state licensing boards, we review financial information received from 34 occupational and professional licensing boards. These boards do not receive a state appropriation and are not included in the executive budget. I'd like to now turn our presentation over to Shannon, who will go over our biannual status report of audits of those state boards.
Chairwoman Bustamante Adams, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Shannon Ryan. I'm an audit supervisor. Before you is a letter that we've prepared dated January 30th. It's a synopsis of our review of the financial information reported by certain boards, state occupational boards for 2016. NRS 218G400 requires boards to be audited annually or biannually if revenues exceed $75,000 in any fiscal year. Boards with revenues less than that total can submit to us a balance sheet for each year. All reports must be submitted by December 1st following the end of the entity's fiscal year. So going over that letter, the first board that we discussed there is the Board of Optometry, who did not file the required audit report with us. We contacted the board, who indicated the audit was not completed because the executive director was not aware of the requirement. This occurred because the current executive director took the position over after the prior executive director passed away, and she wasn't aware that an audit was necessary. They were also in the process of hiring a new auditor to perform the audit.
As such, because they were doing that, they didn't know when the audit would be completed and submitted to us. The next board that we discuss is the Board of Physical Therapy Examiners, who underwent a financial audit for the 2-year period of fiscal year 15 and 2016. The auditors indicated there was not adequate records to support expenditures or expenses for the 2 fiscal years, and as a result, they issued a disclaimer of opinion on that board. They were unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to provide a basis for an opinion on the board's financial statements. The audit report also indicated the prior executive director may have received compensation that was not board approved and may have had personal expenses paid for with board funds. We requested further information from the board, who indicated they had contacted the Attorney General's office for guidance regarding the matter. The AG's office indicated to them that supporting documentation would be necessary for them to further an investigation. The board did not pursue the matter after that because supporting documentation was not available to them, and an investigation would be costly compared to the anticipated dollar value of the misspent funds. The executive director did indicate that the board has improved controls related to cash receipts and disbursements. Finally, we talk about 2 boards who had audit reports with modified opinions. These boards were the State Board of Cosmetology and Marriage and Family Therapists. These boards had modified opinions because they did not adopt GASB standard number 68, which relates to accounting and financial reporting for pensions. We'll continue to monitor both these boards to make sure that they accept and adopt GASB 68 in the future. At the bottom of page 2 of this letter, you'll see a list of the boards who were current with our filing requirements. Attachment A to the letter shows the revenues, expenditures, and the fund balance or net assets of each of the boards that reported to us for fiscal year 16. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you both. Ms. Howdigi?
What happens to boards who don't submit their audit? Is there a fine assessed?
Madam Chair, to Mrs. Howdigi, we don't have the authority to assess fines. What we do is we keep hounding them, basically, and we keep reporting our information to the legislature. And usually over a period of time, then things usually get corrected in those situations. But we do a biannual report, so we would be reporting back to the legislature sometime in July of this year. So we just keep notifying them and notifying the board members. And if there is a situation where there's a potential fraud or something like that, we would contact the Attorney General's office. I know in 2014 I was the supervisor for the boards, and the information did not look correct on a balance sheet submitted to our office, and we kept asking enough questions and writing enough letters, and I ended up getting a nasty phone call from the executive director saying, "You make me look like a crook." And about 2 weeks later after that, she did confess, and she was prosecuted by the Attorney General.
And that was Mr. Cooper for the record. So, Mrs. Neal?
Thanks, Chair. So I had a question on, the physical therapist audit. So there was a statement in there where the executive director indicated that they had limited resources to do an investigation and it would be costly. But when I was looking at their budget, what's the average cost, number one, of an investigation if they were going to look into that misuse of funds related to, that personal expenditure? I'm curious about that. And then my second question is, in terms of the prior year before, how much did they raise?
Madam Chair, in responding to Assemblywoman Neal, if I understand the first question correctly regarding the cost of a potential investigation, It is very difficult in this situation because it's our understanding they don't have the records, and we've encountered this in some organizations. So it's really kind of an unknown process. It's possible that they could get checks, canceled checks from copies from the bank, but they would have to pay for quite a bit of money to get that. I do believe they represented to us, they think the amount of misuse or potential misuse was small. And regarding the fiscal year 15 totals for... We would have to get back to you on that.
Neil, do you have another question?
I just had a quick follow-up. So the investigation is dependent upon whether or not they had funds. I'm just talking about in general, what's the general cost of an investigation? Because when I was marking through this, I mean, they had at least, I think, 3 different occurrences of activity that they weren't doing, but just generally, how much is an investigation? Because it just seemed to be like a pass-off statement, like, we wish we could, but we really can't because it would cost us too much. So I'm just wondering, in general, if it was any other org, how much is an investigation?
Chairwoman Bustamante Adams, through you to Assemblywoman Neal. We did have an instance last year, and I can't remember exactly off the top of my head which board it was, who did have a similar circumstance, and they did go through and have a forensic audit performed. And I knew that that was several $1,000s, upwards of between 7 and 10 for that. And then also including the AG, their attorney fees for the AG also climbed dramatically from the prior year to that year, including them in the investigation as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Carlton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Cooper, when I look at the reserves that are associated with a number of our boards, some of those numbers are fairly large. So I was just wondering, in your professional opinion, is there a standard for reserves considering taking into account the size of the board, previous history? I know there's a number of different ways to try to figure out what a reserve should be. We don't ever want to put a board in a position of not being able to legally deal with the issues in front of them. We don't want them to not prosecute because they don't have the money. But yet when you see a board that has over $8 million in reserves and assets and another one over, $2.3 million in reserves, I have to wonder if we're charging the licensees too much and what some of those issues might be. So is there a standard out there that we can look at?
Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Carlton, I don't believe there is a... Well, I shouldn't say we could look and try to identify a standard. I don't have the standard off the top of my head, but I would agree with your statement that some of these boards appear that their reserves are excessive. I do know because of certain questions that have been raised in the past regarding the reserves that the contractors board did actually give a large refund back to the licensees. Approximately 6 months revenues to a year for revenues. So they gave a large refund, but their fund balance is still quite high, and I think that's something that we could take it's something that Sunset Subcommittee or others could take a look at, because many probably do not need more than a year of revenues unless they're a small board and they anticipate lawsuits.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may, and I'd like to be able to take the historical perspective of what a complicated case would cost. So a year's worth of revenue to keep them going, and then possibly one case so that we could use a baseline for reserves. I believe the issue with the contractors board was a lot of our contractors went out of business, so there was no business to give the refund to. So that made it quite difficult to deal with. But when you see other boards at $2.3 million in reserves, and that's That's working people's money. They're paying for their license to go to work every day. I think we should have some type of baseline on how we should address those. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Stonefield. Thank you, Mr. Cooper and Ms. Ryan. Next, I'd like to call up the Executive Director from the State Board of Examiners, Mrs. Fisher for the osteopathic medicine, and Ms. Denauer from the State Board of Nursing. They will give you just a general board overview of each of these boards, who they serve, what their mission is, and how many licensees they have within their respective jurisdictions. Just please state your name for the record and you could begin.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my
Actually,
name
can
is...
I just have you press that mic button in front of you? Is
It's
it on?
Yeah, I'll try again.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, you'll need to get closer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Edward Cousineau, Executive Director for the Board of Medical Examiners. Hopefully, the members of the committee are in receipt of a 3-page submission that I provided in advance of the committee meeting today. I was asked prior to today to basically get a couple informational items together, the first being some statistics on the Board of Medical Examiners licensing data. And so, if you all, the first page of the materials there, you'll see indicated a comparison from 2015 to 2016, the number of individuals who were licensed in the state. A couple minor items of note. I would note that approximately an 11% increase in the number of licensees that we, medical doctor licensees that we licensed in 2016 compared to 2015. Rather significant uptick in the number of limited license or resident licenses that we issued between 2015 and 2016, approximately a 33% increase. We believe that obviously is related to the new sources of GME funding that have been put in place recently. We certainly expect those numbers to continue with the advent of the new medical schools that are being established down in Las Vegas. And so the 3 categories, physician assistants, practitioners of respiratory care, and perfusionists, the other 3 licensure categories we have, they basically kind of remain static compared to 2015, not much change there. But overall, there was a total increase of approximately 124 licenses issued in the various categories between 15 and 16. And then getting down a little further to the bottom page there, I was asked to provide the total number of licensees we have. Our medical doctor licensees can be in 2 categories, either active or inactive. As you'll see, a total there of a little over 8,600. As far as residents go, total number of licenses 2016 would be 381. We have 927 physicians assistants currently in the state, 1,676 practitioners of respiratory care, and 49 perfusionists. And those numbers were from a week ago. Just updating them as of this morning. We've added 19 more folks to our total as of today. So the current number is 11,680. Moving on to the next page, I was asked to give a kind of an update as to the status of the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact as it relates to the Board of Medicine. And just for background, in May of 2015, last session, legislation was basically adopted and signed by the governor, which allowed us to become the 9th state to be a member of the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. I want to be clear so the committee members understand the compact is not a new licensure category. What it is basically a different pathway to obtain licensure. And it's hoped that based on the statutory allowances that are in place, it will be an avenue to expedite it and allow individuals to obtain licensure in a state of primary jurisdiction, then to more expeditiously obtain licensure in other states who are a member of the compact. And obviously, as I say a little later in the paragraph there, it certainly would facilitate licensure portability, and ultimately we think it would really help out with individuals seeking licensure by telemedicine. And certainly, as we all know here in Nevada, it's a very, very real concern for the rurals being underserved. And again, that's one of the things that we were very, very excited about the compact, getting as many licensees as we can licensed through that medium. 18 states have adopted the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact legislation, model legislation, as of today. There's 5 states that currently have that legislation being contemplated by their state legislatures and have the potential to obviously adopt that as their sessions progress. I serve as one of the voting members, commissioner, on the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. There's 2 commissioners. One resides with the medical board, myself. One resides with the Osteo Board. Ms. Barbara Longo, who is the executive director for the Osteo Board, who's retired, I believe, in the last couple of weeks, was the other voting member. I think Ms. Fisher will probably be able to speak to if they have a new member, but certainly the Osteo Board will have a voting member in place and would be participating in the meetings that we have. And again, the compact has evolved from its infancy stage to close to a working stage. We've got some things to do still. I think I note a little lower in the discussion there that the fact that the executive director is going to be hired in the next few months, which will really assist with the day-to-day activities, which currently are borne by the commissioners. And as I say, we have regular telephonic meetings or in-person meetings. We've had approximately 12 since the compact basically had its first meeting in October of 2015 in Chicago. And so we're getting close, but there are some things to do. But I do believe having a central office and an executive director will definitely increase the alacrity for which ultimately the compact becomes functional and operational. I point out one thing in the body there. We are seeking basically a change to a current language in our Chapter 630.167 of Nevada Revised Statutes. It's been indicated by our DPS, Department of Public Safety, that basically individuals who seek to obtain licensure through the compact will not be able to, or will not be able to have their fingerprints processed, which is one of the requirements under the compact of criminal background check. The rationale there is basically they deem the compact license to be an expedited license, and it's the position of the higher-ups, meaning the Federal Bureau of Investigations, that our statutory construct currently does not allow for the fingerprinting to be had as it relates to an expedited license. Several other states, specifically currently Nevada, Minnesota, and Montana, have received letters from the deep state's DPS saying they will not be able to process them. But I've just learned as of last week there may be up to 10 other states that are suffering the same predicament. So it's very important that we get proposed language back to the feds and ensure that the language we're proposing will meet their legal desires. Basically, a reading of our NRS 631.67 talks about the fact that if an individual basically is seeking a license to practice medicine, that they would be fingerprinting. Certainly, this compact license is just a license to practice medicine, so we don't agree with their interpretation, but at the same time, we're going to try to do everything we can to make sure that we satisfy those folks, because ultimately it's been made clear by individuals who've actually gone to the FBI, the compact commissioner, as well as some other states representatives who were affected, and they will not change their position, and they don't agree with our interpretation, and so we're going to have to do that. So I put that out there to explain that's something that may be coming either attached to our the board's BDR or others, but it's a very, very real import, and we're working to get that resolved. There is also basically a website that I've listed there. It might be something you'd be interested in taking a look. It is fairly intuitive. Gives basically a state diagram of all the states have adopted the Interstate Compact, and also when it was adopted, as well as states that are still contemplating adoption, as I said earlier, in their states' legislatures, and just general information on how the process works. Also, too, if you're interested, have any desire to understand exactly what the statute regarding the compact involves, that's spelled out in Nevada Revised Statute 629.629A. And so that's actually the statutory language. So as I said, I'll be glad to take questions now, or you can feel free to contact me at my office number if you have questions further. So last page, the third page there, the medical board, we're very proud to announce that basically we have stood up, it currently exists, an opioid awareness website. It's called knowyourpainmeds.com, and you see the link there on the materials. We've taken the lead, and not trying to pat ourselves on the back, we've certainly had a lot of support from the other regulatory bodies that it would impact. And as I say, we work collaboratively with the Board of Pharmacy, the Board of Osteopathy, and the Board of Nursing, and the Board of Dental Examiners. It's, again, been a collaborative effort. It's something we felt that was very important. I think we all recognized last year when the governor had his opioid summit that we as a board needed to do more, and we thought this was certainly one of several steps that we could take to try to address the concern. I think the main objectives that I enunciated here, we're talking about basically having a one-stop shop where individuals who have concerns about the potential impact of opioids can basically head to. There's certainly plenty of information there. Also, I think it was important for consumers to be aware of the prescription monitoring program, which is run by the Pharmacy Board. They do a very nice job on that, and there's also obviously a link on the website to the Pharmacy Board's website for further information on that program. And the other thing, too, is this portal basically is something where it's a common portal. Individuals who either may be sure or may not be sure of a prescribing practitioner who they basically are licensed by and where a report would complaint would need to be sent. The website allows for complaints for all the various bodies, a direct link to the websites of those boards to file a complaint. And then there's information, which is obviously something that we think needs to be shared about alternatives to the use of opioids. Obviously, it's not going to be appropriate for everyone in every circumstance, but we try to stress the fact in the website that alternatives are certainly desirable, oftentimes to opioid prescriptions. And then individuals who feel they may, need some intervention, some help. There's resources that are spelled out in the website, which basically can get them, help whatever varying degrees or levels it may need. I think, again, as I say, I think all the regulatory bodies understand that the opioid crisis is something that's very, very real and is a gargantuan problem both at the state level and the national level. And so I think that the website, we again want this to be kind of a proactive step to show that the boards do agree that certain things need to be addressed. And again, this was one of several efforts that we're trying to do to try to assist with the crisis. I also want to make it clear that it's not going to be a fleeting effort. The board basically intends to not only ensure that the website exists for, I don't want to say perpetuity, but for an extended period. And also, as I talked to at the bottom of the page here, ensuring not only that we initiate an advertising campaign, but that campaign continues. Again, as I say, we'll be using television and radio ads eventually. We've reached out to some state leaders to seek their assistance and think that we may have that. And I think it'll be something, if they can offer maybe some sound bites or input, that will further the message. And then also noting the fact, too, that as I said, the campaign will be ongoing. One thing we have to actually put in place already is we have been able to establish a search engine marketing, and I'm not very IT savvy, so can't really explain that except for the fact that I think essentially when you go to do a web search on Bing or Google, put in certain keywords, then that basically be one of the things that you'll see from the search engine there, and then social media advertising, where individuals who have gone to search keywords. There'll be some kind of link or some kind of advertisement for the Know Your Pain Meds website. So those are, I hope that was basically, again, Madam Chair, what you were hoping for. And I did want to, again, point out the opioid awareness website. I know you didn't ask for that, but again, since all three boards here who are speaking today are involved in that, I thought it was important for you all to be aware. I don't know if you'd prefer, Madam Chair, for me to answer your questions now or go through the entire panel and take questions collectively.
Actually, we'll take questions now if there's any for Mr. Kuzno. Yes, Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a couple of questions, or I might have a follow-up. But so on the license compact, I know you mentioned that hopefully it's going to service the rural areas better than we have. So do you have any data on how many people come in using the compact, and then how many of them are actually going to the rural areas?
Well, again, through Madam Chair, Assemblyman Daley, the compact itself is not fully engaged. This is something where we're working towards that. Our desire, of course, is to obviously get individuals who may, for example, be licensed in Idaho, but obtain a license, and knowing how expeditiously they can obtain that license, be willing to obtain one in Nevada. Then potentially knowing that that's one of the real benefits to this expedited licensure, hoping that that they would consider and certainly would be able, based on the type of licensure, to practice via telemedicine. It's not the only, obviously it's not the only purpose for the compact, but I think we believe that that will be one of the significant benefits.
Follow-up. Yep. So along those lines, a couple of questions, and one's leads off there. But the next question I got is, so the doctor comes in, theoretically, to practice. You find most of those guys are like sole proprietors. They're their own doctor. They're opening their own business, seeing patients. So it's a different dynamic for them than, for instance, nurses or other employee-type people. Any information on that?
Please forgive me, I'm not entirely clear on the question, so.
Well, okay, so I'm just trying to say this. So if a doctor comes in using the license, compact, or whatever, they're more likely to be a sole proprietor. They're going to go into business, enter the marketplace, and operate their own business. How they get paid, and who they collect money from, and various things, what insurance groups they might be in. Any information on that, or is it a different dynamic than some other license compacts?
I would have
information.
Through Madam Chair, I would have a hard time responding to that, sir. I really don't know what I don't know what the specialties are going to be. I don't know, again, what their intentions are going to be. We basically, we're thinking, again, general practitioners, family practitioners, internal medicine doctors, who could, again, provide that care to the rurals, the outlying communities. But there's no restrictions or requirements that you have a certain specialty. I think there's certain specialties that we desire, but the one thing the medical board doesn't do is we don't recruit.
Right. But I guess what I was trying to get at is typically they're not employees. And just if I may, one more, Madam Chair. So it made me think of, and it's something that recently came to my attention, and our trust fund, Health and Welfare Trust Fund, now pays for, and we consider it for the virtual doctors, where you get on the internet and you talk to them and various things, especially in rural areas. Are we utilizing that? And I know there was a bill a couple sessions ago on it, so I didn't know if there's any progress made on that, or if this type of situation is impacted by that at all, especially for the rural areas. And that's where we're seeing it being utilized most.
Through Madam Chair, Assemblyman, first off, I think two things I want to point out. It's been for many, many years, if you've had an unrestricted license in the state of Nevada, you can practice telemedicine. That is basically, the definition allows for that. And so, again, if an individual who, as you're describing, they just need to be licensed in Nevada if they're basically, obviously, interfacing with a Nevada patient. And we do also, session before last, I believe, 2013, we put in place a special license category specifically for telemedicine. It's called a special purpose license. Again, the compact is more along the lines of trying to encourage people to come to the states because it's so easy. You don't have to go through the multiple steps, because once you've established that you meet the threshold requirements in the state of primary practice, which again, long story to get to that, explain how the whole process works. But then what will happen is a letter of qualification would be basically provided when an individual seeks licensure through the compact, and that letter is sent out to that state they're requesting to be licensed. So in a matter of days, they can get a license, and then they don't have to provide all the new credentialing material like currently exists. So it's really designed to try to encourage people to get licensed in the compact states because it's effortless in comparison to how it currently exists.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on. Ms. Fish, Ms. Carlton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm curious about your portal that you were talking about, and how it really fits in with the mission of the board. In your legislative declaration, it's all about basically ensuring that the public is safe from doctors. Is this portal geared at physicians or at the public?
through Madam Chair to Ms. Carlton, I believe actually it's more geared to I think the consumer, the public. And again, that's our charge, public protection. I don't think
What type of outreach do you do to doctors and education do you do with doctors as far as this issue goes? Because to me, that seems to be more your mission, is you regulate a profession.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious what's being put towards educating doctors.
Through Madam Chair to the Assemblywoman, we actually do have an outreach program, a 2-hour program that we put on that has basically several slides dedicated to new law that's basically been put in place from the last session, as well as reminding of the requirements that exist. We presented that program last year in August to about 200 folks down in Las Vegas. We presented the program in Reno last September to about an audience of about 100, and we actually drove out to Elko and presented to an audience of about 30. I believe it was late November. So, and we also have 2 or 3 more of these programs scheduled in this coming spring down in Vegas as well as in Reno. So, yeah, we do talk about it. We don't have a specific program dedicated to it, but it's certainly something that we do talk about in our outreach. The other thing, too, so you're aware, Ms. Assemblywoman, is that we have a newsletter, quarterly newsletter, and we constantly are basically sending to our licensees information about prescribe and have been for years now. So I think if you took a look back and went on our website and looked back at our past newsletters, you'd see that's another form of how we're trying to educate our licensees. But again, we do have a live program, which actually also, and the incentive there to get our licensees to attend is you get CME credit for it. It's been approved by the by UNR for the accreditation, basically to get the Category 1 CME. So I hope that answers your question, but I think the website itself, what we're talking about right now, is, again, directed towards consumers, patients, or their families.
I just have always been of the opinion in all the work that I've done with the boards that you're a regulatory body.
Mm-hmm.
That's your job, is to regulate the profession. So I hope the focus will stay there, because in the past we've had problems with that. So I hope we don't lose that focus.
Thank you. Now, I do want to let the members know that we had asked your assistants to make copies of all the presentations today, so it's up on Nellis. If you don't have a physical copy, we have extra ones down here. Some people are techie savvy and they don't want paper. Others prefer it. So if you don't have it, please, if you could work with your assistant in order to get the copies for you. We'll go ahead and move on to Ms. Fisher. If you could just state your name for the record and what group you represent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this record, Susan Fisher with McDonald Corona Wilson, representing the Nevada State Board of Osteopathic Medicine. And I would also like to introduce, we have a new executive director as of about 3 weeks ago, I believe, Sandra Reed, and she is in Las Vegas at the Sawyer Building, and she can step in and correct anything that I misrepresent, perhaps. Hopefully I won't.
Hold on, Ms. Fisher. Ms. Reed, you can go ahead and come to the table. Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
We currently have over 1,200 active licensees of osteopathic physicians, and we have 100 active licensed physician assistants. All applications per statute are available online for applicants to get a new license, to renew, to do licensing by endorsement, reinstatement, changes, verification. Everything is available online. And about 50% of new applicants do opt to apply online. And for renewing licensees, about 90% of them prefer to renew online. And I think probably part of the reason why so many more of them do it when they're renewing is because maybe they don't realize that they can do it online from the get-go the first time around, or they've been in the system longer. We also have at any given time a number of pending and renewal applications. A lot of the ones that are pending are simply because when they come in, there may be some boxes that aren't checked. They're incomplete applications. So what we do, we give them a cursory review as soon as they come in, and then we notify the applicants immediately so that they can complete the rest of the information rather than have it sit through the whole process and go through a board review before we ask them for that information, so that we can get it rounded up quickly. As current licensees approach the end of their license term, approach their renewal period, we do reach out to them and let them know that they're getting close to their renewal period, so that there will not be any lapse in licensing. We also always have a number of ones that are pending who just don't respond. Either they've decided they don't want to come to Nevada, or they're ones who have perhaps moved away from Nevada, or just opted not to maintain their licensing. They're retiring and didn't bother to notify us. We do the case-by-case review on disciplinary issues. If a new applicant has any disciplinary issues that show up when we run the information, then we check a lot more boxes just to make sure that those disciplinary issues were resolved. And we do include questions, personal questions of those applicants by the board when they come in for an interview. If they've had multiple medical malpractice cases filed against them, we talk with them about that and investigate if they have record of alcohol or substance abuse issues, any falsifications in their records, and any negative fingerprint reports. A lot of the processes that we do are very similar to what the medical board does. We also, in 2014, we stopped requiring physician assistants to credential through the FCVS, the Federal Credentials Verification Service, and this has shortened the application time for physician assistants by about 30 days. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? Currently, when we get a complete application, it can be processed typically in 30 to 45 days, and we are always looking for ways to expedite the process, though, to shave another day or two, because we know it is important to get them through the process and licensed and streamline it. Last session, this body passed AB 89, which was to have regulatory boards provide a discount to veterans and spouses of veterans on the licensing fees. We do have that in effect in ours now, and we do have some folks who have applied for it through there. And it also allows for licensing by endorsement for osteopaths if those veterans meet the required qualifications. With regard to the medical licensure compact, one point to Assemblyman Daly's questions, we are anticipating that the first license here in Nevada or first license in all of them, I guess, will be in March of 2017. So they should be coming soon, but there aren't any yet. It's just taken a long time to go through the entire process. And as Mr. Cousineau explained, we've been very involved in that as well with all of setting up the regulations for all and reviewing all of the regulations for all the states to make sure that they all fit together like a nice tight puzzle. So, and they have hired the executive director to oversee a central repository. And our new executive director will be active with the Compact Coalition as well in helping get this rolling for Nevada. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for Ms. Fisher or Mrs. Reed? Okay, and welcome, Mrs. Reed, in your new role. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Next presenter.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Kathy Denauer, and I'm the Executive Director for the State Board of Nursing. And my apologies, I had cataract surgery yesterday. The plus is that I can really see really well everyone in the back row, so which I couldn't do yesterday. You have some information that we've already distributed to you, a fact sheet about the Board of Nursing. I'll just go over it with you. The Nevada State Board of Nursing is a Title 54 board made up of 7 members appointed by the governor. And like other Title 54 boards and commissions, the Board of Nursing is funded through licensure fees and receives no state or general funds. Our mission is to protect the public through the regulation of nursing. Currently, we have 49,178 licensee and certificate holders in the state. Of that, and you can see that on your sheet, we have registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, certified nursing assistants, advanced practice registered nurses, emergency medical service registered nurses, and certified registered nurse anesthetists. In Nevada, it takes approximately 5 days for a CNA and/or an RN LPN to be issued a temporary license or certificate. That is through endorsement, and that's providing that there aren't any problems with that certificate, that application. And that is good for 6 months. So that allows that individual to get out and work as soon as they are issued that temporary license or certificate. Our fees, $100 for nurses to endorse. That fee has not changed in about 20 years. I'm relatively new with the board, but I've been a resident of Nevada for over 20 years, and I know that the fee has not changed. The other piece of what we do through regulation is we discipline. In the last fiscal year, we received 923 complaints regarding licensees and certificate holders. And of those, we closed the majority of those cases based on either a lack of evidence or there was not a violation of our Nurse Practice Act. However, it takes us approximately 100 days to resolve a complaint. We keep statistics on every single complaint that we do open, every investigation. And I thought you might want to know this, but the number one reason, and we share this when we go out and we educate student nurses, brand new nurses, nurses that are old like me, and the number one reason that nurses are disciplined in the state is for not doing their continuing education. Whether it's saying that they've attested that they've done it and then they really didn't do it, or we can't find them, they've changed their address, we don't know where they are. It's really 100% preventable, and we really don't, our board does not like to have to discipline somebody for that. Failure to collaborate with a healthcare team, and then practicing without a license or certificate. The other piece that we do is educate, and we approve our nursing programs. We have 11 fully approved nursing programs, and we have 24 CNA programs. We have some in the provisional status. On the right-hand side of your document, on the lower right-hand side, you can see the degrees that were issued in the last year. So total graduates were 2,392. We have a staff of 26, and we have 2 offices, one in Reno and one in Las Vegas. Both offices are able to accept applications and process those, and we handle fingerprints in both offices. The goal is to make the application process as seamless as possible, so if somebody calls one of our offices, they're not going to necessarily know whether it's Reno or Las Vegas. We just want to be able to help them with their questions. And that's what I have about the Board of Nursing, if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you being here after your surgery. Any questions? Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess you didn't touch on this. You did touch on the number of nurses, and you touched on a little bit how long it takes for someone to apply to be a nurse in Nevada. But I guess my question is, what type of reciprocity is there between Nevada and other states as far as nurses is concerned, and how can one go from one state to another? Could you talk about that just for a minute?
Thank you, Kathy Denauer, for the record. Yes, Assemblyman Kramer. Right now, we're not part of the compact. So right now, what happens is somebody either coming to our state would have to get a license in our state. It's a single license, and that's what they would have to do. If a nurse in Nevada decides to go to another state, they would have to get a license in that state.
Okay, seeing no other questions, then Ms. Denauer, actually, if you could stay at the table, I'd like to thank our other guests for their presentations. We're going to go ahead and move into hearing our assembly bills. I'd now like to open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 18. This measure ratifies a nurse licensure compact. We have the executive director at the witness table. We're going to hear the presentation of the bill. Then we will move into the support position. We'll go to Las Vegas first, and then down to Carson City here. And then we'll go into opposition and into neutral. And each entity will have 4 minutes to address this group. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Assemblywoman Bustamante Adams and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Denauer, and I'm the Executive Director for the State Board of Nursing. With me today is Mike Hellerby, our lobbyist, and he'll introduce himself, and Mr. Fred Olmsted, General Counsel. First of all, I want to tell you that I've been a nurse for just shy of 37 years, and I started in the emergency department in Los Angeles, what was once called South Central, and I went into management and then into administration. And as a nurse, I have never wavered from my passion for this profession. Regardless of any of the positions I've ever held, whether it was at the bedside or in administration, it's always been about the patient. How can I protect and advocate for that patient? And while some of us here today may be on different sides of the aisle, I think we can all agree that we want to do what's best for our patients. Each and every patient, regardless of the setting that they are located, not only deserves but has a right to expect that the nurse caring for them is competent, has met standard qualifications, and is not impaired. And again, the mission of the Board of Nursing is to protect the public through effective regulation. The Nurse AB 18, or the Nurse Licensure Compact, is often referred to as the Compact, was launched in 2000 as an initiative to expand the mobility of nurses as part of our nation's healthcare delivery system. The Compact involves registered nurses and licensed practical nurses only. There is a separate compact for advanced practice registered nurses, and we're not here to discuss that today. It allows a nurse to have the ability to practice across state lines, physically and electronically, through a seamless process without additional applications or fees. It ensures and encourages communication between the compact states on important issues such as investigations and discipline, and provides many benefits, including a reduction in redundant regulatory processes or fees for individuals, for example, who are part of the military or whose spouses are in the military who may need to relocate. It sets uniform licensure requirements for each multi-state license, including graduating from a qualifying education program, passing a national exam, having an unrestricted license, submitting to criminal background checks, and having a Social Security number. The original compact had 25 states, and those states met on a regular basis. And in fact, Deborah Scott, our former executive director, is here in the audience today, and I think she would allow me to mention her name, but she is here willing to provide testimony if you want a historical perspective of that, of the compact. And in May of 2015, the states agreed on an enhanced compact that would include criminal background checks. And so currently there are 10 states in the compact, in the enhanced compact, with several states seeking approval this year, and you have a map in your packet of information. So, what are we trying to do here? The current licensing structure overall, it really isn't flexible enough to accommodate the mobility of the workforce and the growth of telehealth. The compact allows a nurse to have one license in their home state and practice under that license on a privilege to practice in all the states that are in the compact, which again eases that regulatory burden. It provides access to health care, mobile workforce, patient safety, and an ease of regulatory burdens. Those impacted by the bill would be all Nevada nurses who would gain privileges to practice in all those compact states without having to go through their licensure requirements. They would have to meet the licensure requirements in their home state. Who supports our bill? Locally, we would like to thank the Nevada Hospital Association, Nevada Rural Healthcare Partners, the Nevada Organization of Nurse Leaders, Nevada Nurses Association, and the Nevada Action Coalition. On a national level, the compact has received letters of support from the National Military Family Association, the American Organization of Nurse Leaders, American Telehealth, and the American Association of Colleges of Nursing. And so you'll hear today through our testimony why do we want this and why are we seeking this in Nevada. We already have standards to become licensed or certified in the state of Nevada. The compact provides the ability for a nurse to practice in multiple states with one license. It provides immediate assistance to a state experiencing a disaster. As I mentioned earlier, that it takes approximately 5 days to get a temporary license in the state. As many of you may or may not know, a disaster can happen and in 5 days it's over. So it's important that we have that ability to have those nurses being able to cross state lines. Provides us with the ability to facilitate and communicate discipline cases across state lines so that we are obligated, all compact states must communicate with each other with regards to discipline or the investigations going on within their state. And it clarifies the nurse's authority to practice in multi-states via telehealth. And it's all done without lowering the standards set forth in our Nurse Practice Act. The cost to us is approximately $6,000 a year to be part of the compact. There is a fiscal impact to our revenue that we have already vetted out, and I believe that information is within your packets as well. And we have met with our auditor and our finance folks, and we do not and will not increase the fees of licensure to accommodate the offsetting of the compact. And I'm going to now turn it over to Mr. Olmsted, who's going to talk about the articles of the compact.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Let's look at AB 18. Article 1, findings and declaration of purpose. So these findings are either acceptable at first reading, or after we talk about the nuts and bolts, so to speak, behind it, you'll come back to when you'll accept these findings. Of interest is number 3, the expanded mobility of nurses and the use of advanced communication technologies as part of our nation's healthcare delivery system requires greater coordination and cooperation among states in the area of nurse licensure and regulation. We're looking to the future. The latest issue of RN Information, the President's note, had this information: the retirement of 1/3 of the nursing workforce over the next 10 years. So we're looking to the future where 1/3 of our nurses are going to retire in the next 10 years. And you can verify this information in your own personal experience, and also on February 22nd, which is Nurses' Day here at the legislature. So when you look in the halls and see a bunch of caring individuals, and you're talking to 2 or 3 of them, if it comes up, you can ask if one of them is going to retire in the next 2 years, or however you want to go about that. You can verify this information. To meet that need, greater mobility is necessary, and the compact is one way to get greater pool of nursing available to Nevada. If we turn the page to page 3, top of the page, number 5. One of the purposes is to invest all party states with the authority to hold others accountable for meeting all state practice laws in the state which the patient is located at the time the care is rendered, which we already do. If a nurse is practicing nursing in Nevada and the patient is in Nevada, we hold that nurse accountable for the patient care provided. So this provides nothing new, but it reinforces that the Nevada State Board of Nursing has the ability to hold that nurse accountable. And of course, it's sad that we talk about discipline and holding a nurse accountable when only 1 to 2 nurses are ever disciplined. So the 98, 99% of the nurses will flow through the process. They get their license, they do the right thing, they renew their licenses, and we never hear from them again. But if a nurse does act inappropriately, we have the jurisdiction, as we always have been, to impact their license, which is the purpose as stated on the top of page 3. Article 2, definitions. We'll look at those definitions. You can read up on the multi-state license privilege. On the middle of page 3C, the Coordinated Licensure Information System. That's a database. It's a national database that has information on nurses and discipline that we can access. There's already a national database that we belong to, but there's another database that the compact states will have access to that has greater scrutiny, greater information. So we're already accessing the national database, but there's another name for their database. Bottom of page 4, Article 3. So this is the basic principle. A, A multi-state license to practice registered or licensed practical vocational nursing is issued by the home state to a resident in that home state, and it will be recognized by each party state as authorizing the nurse to practice under the multi-state privilege in our state. So if we aren't part of the compact and Utah is part of the compact, a nurse has a home state of Utah and a multi-state privilege in Utah, they can come to Nevada and practice without doing anything else. That should be understood. They don't have to notify us. They don't have to notify Utah. They just have to practice safely in Nevada based on that multi-state privilege. And that's the purpose of the compact. They don't have to call us. They just can practice. So a nurse can live in Truckee and practice and have a California license and Nevada license. Now they've got to have a Nevada license to practice Truckee and Reno. In Utah, if they live in Utah and they have a home state in Utah, they can come to Nevada and practice and go back to Utah and we'll never know. They practice safely. They've got a multi-state privilege. We recognize it. That's the greater access to care. Now, here we get to the top of page 5. This is where it gets interesting because this is the uniform requirements. Because you're going to say, if we sign on to this, does this compact require those other nurses in their home state to be as qualified as the nurses in Nevada? And these are all laid out. I provided, I think, Ms. Richard, did you get that NRS kind of comparison? If you didn't, we'll send it to you. I took every one of these, every paragraph on Article 3 and matched up the NRS next to it to show to myself and prove to you that everything in Article 3, every requirement they have, we already have. Nothing new. They're not requiring anything we don't, and we're not requiring anything that they're not. So I did that work to make sure that when I sit before you, as I am now, I can say the basic licensure requirements are equal to our own right now. And there's some discussion. I'd be happy to bring it up and talk about any individual requirement. That's on C1, all of page 5. And you go to the bottom of page 5D, all party states shall be authorized in accordance with existing state due process laws to take adverse action against a nurse's multi-state licensure privilege, such as revocation, suspension, probation, and any other action that affects the nurse's authorization to practice under multi-state privilege, including cease and desist action. Well, that's what we do now. If a nurse takes missteps in Nevada, they've got a Nevada license as required. They can't practice in Nevada today unless they've got a Nevada license. We have jurisdiction over them. We can take actions against them. So just take out nursing license in Nevada and put in multi-state privilege, and that's exactly what they do now. We can take actions against their nursing privilege, their multi-state privilege. And that's on the bottom of page 5, letter D. We turn to page 6. E on line 5. A nurse practicing in a party state must comply with the state practice laws of the state in which the client is located at the time of the service is provided. If they're providing telenursing and they're sitting in Utah, but their patient's in Nevada, they've got to obey and comply with Nevada standards. And that's what the top of page 6E provides. And then farther down in that paragraph, the practice of nursing in a party state under a multi-state privilege will subject a nurse to the jurisdiction of the licensing board, the courts, and the laws of the party state in which the client is located at the time the service is provided. They're subjecting themselves to Nevada courts, Nevada jurisprudence, if their patient's located in Nevada. That's pretty key. I circled that one. Moving down to the bottom of page 6, applications for licensure in a party state, they must check the nursing database for discipline before they give them multi-state privilege. Top of page 7B, a nurse may hold a multi-state license issued by the home state in only one party state at a time. They can't have two party states. If they've got home state in Utah, they can only have that in multi-state privilege in any other compact state. They can't have more than one party state, one home state. Moving down, Article 5, A1, again, in addition to the other powers conferred by state law, a licensing board shall have the authority to take adverse action against a nurse's multi-state licensure privilege to practice within that state. That gives us jurisdiction to act on a nurse who had a patient in Nevada and acted inappropriately, which is important to all of us, the Nevada State Board of Nursing and Nevada citizens. Turn the page, page 8. If we go down to B, about line 30, if adverse action is taken by the home state against a nurse's multi-state license, the nurse's multi-state license to privilege to practice in all other party states shall be activated. I'm sorry about picking on Utah, but they're close by. If Utah is the nurse's home state and the home state acts on their nursing license, then they pull back all of their multi-state privilege. And they'll notify instantly every member of the compact so we know that that multi-state privilege has been impacted. Page 9. Now this is, if we go down A, B, C, all licensing boards shall promptly report to the Coordinated Licensure Information System any adverse action, any current significant investigative information, denials of application with reasons for such denials, and nurse participation in alternative programs known to the licensing board, regardless of whether such participation is deemed non-public or confidential. We maintain confidentiality under state law and Nevada stuff, but we can share with other state boards, and we do as soon as our discipline is public. We report it to a national database, and it's broadcast to other licensed states. Right now, Nevada is called a single state license. If you want to practice nursing in Nevada, you got to have a Nevada license. And if we impact a Nevada nurse's license, then we broadcast it to the now existing national database, and they automatically generate an email to any other state where that nurse is licensed. We receive, by the same token, we receive emails the same day a nurse is disciplined in another state, whether it's Arizona, Utah, Florida. If their license is disciplined in Florida and they've got a Nevada license, we're notified the same day. And we call that nurse up, we write them a letter. Something bad happened in Utah or Florida, tell us about it, what's going on, so we can better protect the citizens of Nevada. Page 10, Article 7, Establishment Interstate Commission. This is an organization that will kind of oversee the nurse licensure compact. The existing compact had 25 states. They had a group of people that kind of oversaw the compact. This is a more organized approach. Every state gets one vote. Nevada will have one vote if we join that compact. And then that's the powers of the commission. Page 15 is rulemaking. The commission has the authority to create rules. It was explained to me, because we've never been in a compact, it was explained to me that this compact is a statute and the rules are the regulation. And in Nevada, and I think everywhere else, rules don't trump statutes. So they cannot make rules that will trump anything in this compact. So if this compact is passed, this is the rule, this is the law, and the rulemaking will augment that. It cannot supersede it. And if it does and we don't like it, then Article 9 is the dispute resolution and enforcement. And then Article 10 is effective date, withdrawal, and amendment. And Article 11 is the date and time this is supposed to take effect. And that's kind of a broad brush. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We did a lot of research. Either we can answer questions right now, or if something comes up later on, please contact the Board of Nursing, my phone number, and/or Michael Hillerby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, if I may, again, Michael Hillerby for the record on behalf of the State Board of Nursing. We do want to thank the governor and his staff for including this as an administration bill, as a bill draft request. For those of you that have been around or have been watching this issue, you know over the last several years, the legislature by law, the governor by executive order have put a lot of focus on ways to make licensing quicker, decrease those barriers, be it for military spouses, members of the military, retirees, others, discounted licensing fees. You heard about that earlier from some of the other boards that presented. We think this is the next step in doing that. This is done to make that easier on nurses. It is done to address what we know is a nursing shortage that ebbs and flows with the economy and depends on specialty and parts of the state, but we think this has an opportunity to help with that. And also for the board, as a member of the party state, as Fred explained, Mr. Olmsted explained, even better access to the database so we know where nurses are. We know instantly if discipline has happened, if something's been filed with them, which again helps with the public safety. The important piece of this is, and Mr. Olmsted went over, in the section on qualifications, the reason that the board members who were appointed by the governor under the rules established by you voted to move forward with this is because they felt like the enhanced nursing license compacts basic minimum qualifications were substantially equivalent to our high standards in Nevada, or we wouldn't be doing this. So what you're adopting for a nurse that wants to pursue a multi-state license here is substantially equivalent to the high standards we have. And the important part, and Mr. Olmsted also covered this, but I think it's really critical to know, the National Compact Organization has rules and a process for dealing with their procedures and policies. They cannot change the compact. Only you can do that. You are the only people that can change the compact. If it needs to be updated, if it needs to be changed, that requires a change in state law. And for that to work, all of the states would need to do that. So you control that. Obviously, the board would come to you if we felt like things had changed in the profession, things were changing in the state of education, what have you, and there may be a need to do that. And the important part is each of those member states has one vote, has a member on the commission. Kathy Dinauer or another person decided by the board would be the representative for Nevada, so we would know what was going on. So that part's really important. Those operational and procedural issues that happen at the national level through the commission can't change the underlying law and cannot change the compact. That is solely up to you to do. So we'd be happy to answer questions, and of course I'm available anytime. I'm here every day, but answer questions about the compact, why we're doing it. We did finally want to say we had learned of some concern from particularly the Service Employees International Union. Had a very good meeting with them on Monday, went through a lot of the details within the compact and some of their concerns. I won't speak for them. They'll be able to come and speak themselves. We just for the first time saw a document at the beginning of the hearing from, I want to get the name of the organization right, the National Nurses United and National Nurses Organizing Committee proclamation. Be happy to address that. Again, if you'd like to, we can do some of that quickly now or come back up if you have further questions or after the fact if that is a better use of the committee's time. So again, thank you, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Now we're going to open up the questions for committee members. Ms. Howdiggy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question regarding the disciplinary actions, because I know in Article 5 under Sections 1 and 2, it talks about a party state being able to take back the privilege of a nurse to practice in that state. And then, like you mentioned, the home state gets notified that same day. What about the other party states that are part of the compact? What if that nurse just goes and practices in another party state? How quickly are they notified?
The internet and email. One email goes to the party state that Nevada acted against. I'll back up 2 seconds. Fred Olmsted from the Nevada State Board of Nursing. If the complaint is egregious enough, we're going to notify the home state by email. And then we're going to start doing due process and discussing and investigating to figure out what the heck happened. If after a due process and a hearing and evidence and all that kind of stuff, if we impact that nurse's privilege of practice in Nevada, we will provide to the home state that information. And then we will notify everybody else in the compact of what we did. So if a nurse's home state is Utah and they got their privilege of practice in Arizona impacted in Arizona, we're going to know about it as soon as Utah and everybody else in the compact. If that answers your question.
Yes, but we won't be notified until after the investigation. So they could be practicing here until there's been an outcome?
Yes and no. The compact does say we're going to be notified if significant, I forget the words, I'll find it. They can notify us if the complaint is of significant investigative information. So we'll know before discipline is imposed. But the second part of the question, again, Fred Olmsted, is that we don't know today where nurses practice. You qualify for a license, here's your license. We don't know if they practice in Las Vegas, we have an address, but we don't know if they practice in Reno, wherever they are. So you're absolutely correct. We wouldn't know if they were practicing in Nevada until we get information and revoke or impact their privilege to practice in our state. And then that would be broadcast. And the good news is that the employers in Nevada can subscribe to emails also. So they can subscribe to emails from that database so that when they can put their employees in that database and they'll get emails from that database if one of those employees that they identify they have an impacted license. So the world's getting smaller such that if I employ a nurse and I put the word in that nurse's name in that database, if that nurse's privilege to practice in Nevada is impacted, I'm going to get an email and I'm going to know about it. And I'm going to do the right thing and refer that nurse to the Domestic Board of Nursing or wherever it's supposed to go.
Thank you, Ms. Neal.
Thanks, Chair. So my question is coming from Article 5. I actually have two questions. So the first one, I guess it's line 29 through 34. So my question here is, it looks like you're delegating authority beyond state law. And so I'm trying to be super clear on why and the implications of that, because it says in addition to other powers conferred by state law, a board shall have the authority to do X, Y, Z. I want to know, like, what's the basis of that? Because there's a couple of things that are giving me cause for concern. Could you answer that first part before I go to my next question?
Sure. Assemblywoman Neal, this is Michael Hillerby on behalf of the board, and Mr. Olmsted can jump in if he has additional information. And we probably should have started with this. It's important to note that this is not replacing any of our existing license or disciplinary laws. So this is in addition to everything else that is already in our Practice Act. So if you were to approve this, and ultimately it was signed and went into effect, a nurse could still choose to get a single state license here. Say, I live in Nevada, I have no interest in doing anything else, I'm going to get a Nevada license. Or you can apply under these new provisions of the compact, and that license would allow you to have a multi-state privilege to practice in those other states. So and the important part is, an action against your home state license must happen in your home state. We will be given information if there's significant investigative complaint filed, discipline, other issues in another state, and we can choose what to do with that. But no other state can take action against the nurse's home state license. They can remove their privilege to practice just as we could, as Mr. Olmsted said, for a nurse from Utah or something else. The action and discipline against that home state license is reserved to the home state. So I hope that answers the question. We do retain our sovereignty, and all of our existing laws remain in effect.
Okay. So in my next question, it's kind of tied together. I'm looking at the whole act. And so I was looking at page 6 where, and it's line 16 through 18, where you're talking about the individuals not residing in a party state. But the thing that I'm focused on is the however statement, that the single state license granted to these individuals will not be recognized as granting a privilege to the practice of nurse in any other state. And I'm assuming the way that I was reading it all was that when they move to the home state, there is a period where they need to apply for the multi-state license or choose to keep their single state license. So the question that came up in my mind, holding that thought in your mind, is the section in Section 7 that was dealing with this qualified immunity from defense and this indemnification clause, right? So if I want to practice and I move, And let's say I choose to not get the license or do a multi-state license. That provision on page 6 seemed to hold them kind of in this state of you may not have a license unless you choose to take on the multi-state if they're a party to the, I don't know. All I know is I don't like the qualified immunity, and you can say that it's yada yada, but I'm trying to figure out why you guys have this super extra defense regarding someone's license.
Assemblyman Neal, hopefully, I'm going to make sure I understand the question. Part A is, would you be required to have a multi-state practice privilege license? No. You could, as a member of a compact, as a nurse in any of the compact states, still choose to get a single state license. If you could point us to the qualified immunity is that Article 7 you said?
It's Article 7, and it's like you have so many letters in this one, I had to super go back and read. So if you go to, I think it's sub I, but it's under, you have subsection 4, sub I, and it says qualified immunity, defense, and indemnification. And it's in my bill, because I have like a printed one, it was page 14, lines 23 through 36, which are stuff may not align, but you guys have so many, like section Article 7 is so huge, you have several I's. So I don't, all I can tell you is that it looks like sub 4, sub I, and it literally has the title Qualified Immunity, Defense, and Indemnification.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Neal. I will do the song and dance act a little bit while Mr. Olmsted has a chance to look at that. You are correct. This is a little confusing with the subsections, and the joys of a compact is we get the language as it's written, because obviously that's the point, is to adopt that. This refers to the administrators, officers, executive directors, employees, and others of the commission itself, of the national body, not back to the state. Does that help answer the question? And I don't know if Mr. Olmsted might. I want to make sure we understand what you've asked of us.
So it just seems super convoluted. So I might as well just get to the point. It seems super convoluted. So you have state law or pretty much determining the rights of the licensee in their home state. And then you have this commission that appears to have these other powers and authority to, number one, they're immune from suit. So I'm confused on why this commission, which seems to be able to have these tentacles to reach into the home states where a multi-state license exists, that's how I'm seeing it, then has this qualified immunity from their administrators, officers, and executive director and representatives if they do something that is illegal. That's how I'm interpreting it. I'm expecting you to help me filter through it, because you brought what to me is a super large bill that seems to have this bifurcation of state law and then this commission that has this extra power to reach into states. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Mrs. Neal. Michael Hillerby. It does. Thank you very much. Again, it is qualified immunity, and you have a legal background that I don't necessarily have, and it is not for every act. And at the end of that, it's starting at, I believe, line 32, nothing shall be construed to protect any such person from suit or liability for any damage, loss, from intentional, willful, or wanton misconduct of that person. It does not talk about breaking laws, about being illegal. This would be, as I understand it, civil. So, again, when I go back to the important part, nothing, the commission, no one else can come in and change state law, can change the way nurses get licensed here, the way discipline works. It's a matter of each of those states that have adopted the compact, have adopted these same standards, and we have a way to be sure that we're tracking discipline from one to the other. The commission itself, the national entity that's from the National Conference of State Boards of Nursing, cannot reach in and discipline a nurse. They cannot reach in and change state law. They cannot reach in to Nevada. This is about their operations as a commission, about their internal personnel decisions, about the way that the national database operates. And again, remember, we, like the other states in the compact, if this passed, have one vote on that commission. So this is about sort of internal policies and procedures for how they operate versus the compact, which again, only you control. You are the ones that would adopt this if you choose to, and to make any changes. And as Mr. Olmsted pointed out toward the end, there is a provision if the state of Nevada decided, if the board wanted to recommend to you, or you lost confidence in the compact, with 6 months' notice, we can withdraw and leave the compact, and the multi-state practice privilege would no longer apply to Nevada. So the significant control remains with you and under Nevada law.
Yes, go ahead.
So tell me how this works then. So if you're saying the state keeps control, and then you have in the provision, which is still section 7, but it's below sub 2, well, it's actually sub 3 on page 15. If you're saying the commission shall indemnify and hold harmless any of those folks listed from any settlement or judgment arising out of any actual or alleged act, error, or omission that occurred within the scope, what do we do if they are in conflict and the legislature decides that they are in error? There is an alleged activity. What then happens in that circumstance? Because when you have an alleged act could be, it's totally circumstantial. It's what I think you did, and you are now held harmless from me acting upon this range of activities, which really is opinion. So it's like, it's just weird to me. I just want you to help me understand it, because it just seems like a lot of protections, and I just don't understand why they need it, because it seems to be in conflict with the state trying to say, well, if I don't like you, or if there are different things that are happening, they're held harmless from the administrators or the executive directors of the organization who do enact.
So Assemblywoman Michael Hillerby, on behalf of the Board of Nursing, and perhaps Mr. Olmsted or Kim Arguello is in the Las Vegas office if she wants to weigh in on this. From, again, my reading of this and having been a state employee some years ago, this talks about employees and is something like the indemnification and protection you receive as a state employee as long as your acts are within the scope and course of your employment. Not exactly the same language, but very similar to that. So the individual employees of the commission would not be subject to something as long as they were, it was not a wanton, intentional, willful, or wanton misconduct of that person. So I think it is, I would argue it is fairly similar to what we would enjoy as state employees and others, that if you're in the scope and course of your employment, you are indemnified. That happens often in the private sector, as it certainly does in the public. And without, and I'll stop, but and I'll be happy to talk with you later if you come up with some specific questions, and we will ask with the existing compact, because it has been around with 15 years, if there have been complaints or issues that have arisen against the compact that either a state felt disadvantaged or a nurse licensed under the compact felt that the national organization had in some way done anything. I'm not aware of that from the conversations we have. We will ask that question. Be happy to talk to you and find out if we can come up with a specific example that would help us better answer the question and maybe help you feel more comfortable with that. And if you can come up with a specific question, would love to know that and try to address it. And I'll stop there, and again, we'll work with you and deal with this. The tough part about having a bill on the first day is it's the first day, and the first bill you all get to sink your teeth in is a tough one. The good part, we have a little time to work on this with the chair's permission. And I don't know if Kim had anything to say from, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Carlton?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible because I know we've gone over our limit on this one, and I want to give the other folks a chance to talk. I'm just going to give you a scenario, and then you can fill me in. I have a relative in the hospital. A nurse comes in from another state. There's an incident. That nurse is responsible. That nurse leaves the state, goes someplace else. But the nurse should have never been in our state because there was an incident someplace else, and the commission did not notify someone. Under the conversation you just had with my colleague at the far left of the dais, can we hold the commission responsible for not notifying Nevada that that nurse should not have been in our state? Or are they indemnified?
Do I need to do it again, or did I do it pretty well?
I think we understand the question. I'm not sure we have an answer for you today, and unless Ms. Arguello has one down there. I don't know the answer. I'm looking at Kim to see if she's
If
got.
the commission messes up, they need to be held accountable, and I just need to know that.
Thank you. And Fred said, and I would agree completely, and we would have a long discussion about whether was the omission deliberate or was it inadvertent. So we're going to work with Mike and we'll contact you and we'll get an answer to that question. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well,
Excuse me, Assemblywoman Carlton, if I may, Michael Hillerby, while it doesn't directly address your question about potential liability of the national organization for some potential accident with the database, the important part about that is even if the nurse leaves and goes back to a home state and leaves here, we still have an ability to discipline. We still have an ability
I
to do
understand.
that.
Thank
Okay,
you, Mr.
I wanted to be
Hillerby.
sure
I'm
that
good
was
on
clear.
that. Well,
Okay.
I'm not good on the nurse side because you know how I feel about this bill since 2000. So and that hasn't changed. But it's the liability of the commission I'm looking for, because if they let this happen, they need to be held responsible. And if they're indemnified through this, as a state employee would, I would have really great concerns that there's no teeth in this thing to hold them accountable to protect the people of the state. And a regulatory body's number one mission is to protect the people of the state. And if they can't go after them, then who can? So that's something that I think needs to be addressed. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Ardajo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have to agree with my colleagues that spoke previously. I'm concerned about the security that we would have to make sure that we have all the legal protections in place. Hypothetically, if 10 folks came from, to use Mr. Homestead's example state, Utah, and unfortunately did something completely wrong and left, is there an agreement, a legal agreement within the compact that would protect us? Would they pay the legal fines? Would the state have to take it up? Would we then have to sue Utah? All these questions just continue to generate, but I don't want to dive in any more deep because I feel like it's probably going to happen. I do, however, want to ask just two clarifying questions. One, you may have mentioned it, but what other 9 states are a part of the compact? And two, in terms of the standards, are the current standards set by the compact that all of the 9 states more flexible and lenient than the ones that Nevada currently has, or are they more strict? And if we could see that, compare and contrast, that would be really helpful.
Thank you. Fred Umstead, Nevada State Board of Nursing. I believe you have a nice map. The current states that have enacted the new nurse licensure compact are Idaho, Arizona, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Florida, Virginia, and New Hampshire. There are other states. I believe there are 10 or 12 states that are currently considering this legislation. The second part of the question is what protections, what standards are they equal, greater, or less than our own in Nevada? It's a good discussion. We would say the baseline, they're the same. You have to graduate from an accredited program. You got to take that national test that everybody in the United States has to take. No criminal convictions, no discipline. And there are some other stuff you have to do, but each state is different. And to renew in Nevada, you have to have 30 hours of continuing education. You have to practice once in 5 years. You have to maintain licensure. We looked at the 10 states that enacted it, and they're all kind of different. In Florida, you have to take some CEs, but they have to be, you have to take 1 unit on HIV. You have to take 1 or 2 units on the Florida laws. So every state does it different. South Dakota does not require continuing education, but they require a certain amount of hours of practice in the last 6 years. So every state does things different, but in aggregate, I think they're all about the same, about protection, protecting the public, and equal of licensure.
Assemblyman Michael Hillerby, if I may, I think part of your question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, have the other 9 states in the Enhanced Compact adopted this same language? And the answer is yes. So the same standards that are in here that the board has felt like are substantially equivalent with what we require for the criteria to be licensed, they have adopted the same compact language.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, have Has there been any analysis of the annual incomes of the the industry in the other states that are going to adopt this or have adopted this, compared to the annual incomes of the nurses here in Nevada?
Assemblyman Michael Hill, on behalf of the board, are you referring to the board's operating income or individual nurses? Individual nurses?
Individual nurses.
Thank you.
in the industry as a whole in those states, what it looks like compared to our state. And
I
to
have
each
not
other.
seen any. I'll ask Ms. Dinauer or any of theirs. I don't know, not aware of any.
Kathy Denauer for the record, and not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Speaker Frierson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions. Some of them might be fairly easy to resolve. You had mentioned that the standards under the compact can't be changed unless the members approve it and that we have a vote. Am I clear in understanding that what you're meaning is it requires a unanimous vote of all members to make a change, or are we just a vote, which means if we opposed it, it wouldn't necessarily stop the change from occurring?
So thank you, Mr. Speaker, Michael Hillerby. So I want to separate two issues. One is, again, those operational and procedural matters at the national office level. We would have one vote to determine that. Before there were any change made to this language, again, that commission could not come into Nevada statute and make any changes to that. That is only up to you. If the commission, through whatever mechanism, with everybody having a vote, made a recommendation that it was time to update the compact, which is exactly what this is. This is the second version of the compact. The first, again, we mentioned 25 states adopted the first one. Nevada has never joined it. Those qualifications are higher. Now this is being offered back out and going back through and having states update that. So we would have the same one vote as in every other state on operational matters or on determining what to bring back to you and the other states to consider. That decision relies completely with you whether or not to adopt it and make a change and whether we would stay in the compact or not.
So for clarification, then, the part that does require a vote of the members, again, is it unanimous or is it a percentage, is it majority?
I'm not sure. I can ask Ms. Scott.
We will, excuse me, Mr. Michael Hillerby, we will find an answer for you on the procedural issue at the commission for those votes.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I can quickly follow up a couple other questions. My next question is, what if a state joins the compact and then that state's standards become, what is required of a nurse in that home state, and then that state raises its standards, then the home state nurses would have to meet those standards, but compact member nurses from other states would not?
What I know is that the nurse,
could you
this
state
is
your
Kathy
name for-
Denauer,
Thank
excuse
you.
me, for the record, that the nurse needs to meet all licensure requirements of their home state. That's it, of their home state. So whatever their home state is, and that's where they've declared residency.
Right. So if Utah, since we use Utah as an example, has a set of standards and Nevada has a set of standards, then Nevada would have to accept Utah's lower set of standards if that were the case.
Fred Olmsted, Nevada State Board of Nursing. No. An example is Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, to get a home state license, an Oklahoma nursing license, you do not have to be fingerprinted. But if you want a multi-state privilege, you have to get fingerprinted. So Oklahoma has raised its standard up by accepting this compact. They've raised their standard up to say if you want to practice in the compact under a multi-state privilege, you have to get fingerprinted. And if you don't want to get fingerprinted, we'll give you a single state license in Oklahoma, and that's where you'll stay.
Okay, and if I can interrupt, because I think you're going in a different direction, that's the opposite of the scenario I was asking about, where Oklahoma standard is lower than the compact. What if the home state standard is higher than the compact? For example, what if the home state standard requires extra continuing education requirements than the other states or the compact? Would this mean we would have to accept the lower standard nurses who come into Nevada who come from a home state that has lower standards than Nevada would?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Michael Hillerby. We're slow, I apologize. I think we understand your question now. The important piece of this, by adopting the compact and all the work that has gone into it, those core pieces of licensure that the states have determined in those boards and through the compact and what we're bringing to you and that our board has voted on, we think are the key pieces for public safety. If there are additional pieces outside of that that are above and beyond, again, as Mr. Olmsted said, states handle continuing competency and continuing education a little bit differently. You would still, a nurse practicing here would still be held to the same practice standards as our nurses. They would still be expected to perform in the same way and held to the same standard of care. But the core piece stays there. So those states have agreed that that's the bare minimum that's required, and it's a high minimum. I don't really. That's probably not the best terminology for it because it's a strict set of standards. So we've agreed to that. Those are the key pieces. If there are additional pieces states want to add that don't affect those, they can. But again, and we pointed to that language earlier, and I'll be happy to provide a follow-up. The key piece is when a nurse is practicing under a multi-state privilege in one of those other states, they better be practicing to the standard of care in that state and meet the requirements of nurses. That's not going to be that they got exactly the same kind of CE or did they get the bioterrorism here versus the HIV required in Florida, but those standards, you're going to be held to task in that state that you've met the standard of care.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll make it's kind of a question, but not, and I don't want to take up too much time, but my other concern as we flesh this out is how we assure if we join a compact that our home state nurses will not be overtaken by out-of-state nurses that aren't Nevada residents and that Nevada nurses be a priority.
Thank you. Any other questions from members? Yes, Mr. Daly. I'll offer you one more. Or did I skip you? No. Did I? Sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I actually have several questions, if I can just go ahead and proceed until she cuts me off. So along those lines of questions that Assemblyman Frierson just had, so for me, and I'll try to skip through some of this stuff, but am I reading the very first article, it's on page 3, subsection 5, starting on line 1, and then subsection 7. So one of the goals is to invest all party states with the authority to hold the nurse accountable for meeting all state practice laws. So to me, along the lines we were just saying, so all state practice laws, if we have a continuing education requirement and that nurse comes in across Utah without us knowing, and she hasn't met our requirement for continuing education because it wasn't required in Utah, they wouldn't be up to our state standard. We wouldn't know, but they would have a license to practice in the state unless there was a complaint or something. We wouldn't know because we're not knowing if they're even crossing the line. So I don't know that that's actually the met. And then number 7, same page, starting at line 7, it says provide opportunities for interstate practice by nurses who meet uniform license requirements. So where are those uniform license requirements listed? I don't see it anywhere. And I know we have our state practice. And it might be different than other state practices. We just established that. So what uniform license requirements are you referring to in this?
Thank you, Michael Hillerby. Mr. Daly, that is Article 3, starting on page 4. And really the meat of that starts on page 5. That lists all of the requirements to be licensed. Those would be the same requirements that would be in every state. And again, one of the reasons we're bringing this, the board voted to bring this before you now and ask you to consider the policy question is because they feel like the enhanced nurse licensure compact, those are stricter requirements than the first and more directly mirror those required in current Nevada law. So all of Mr. Olmsted could briefly summarize them, but they're all there on page 5.
So they're more stringent than what's in current Nevada law? And that's what I was.
I'm sorry, Mr. Daly, I misspoke. No, these were more stringent than the original compact that came out 15 years ago. These more closely mirror what we already require in Nevada state law, which is why we brought it for you, because we think these more closely mirror that, and these would achieve the board's primary objective of protecting patient safety.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly before in the previous questions, these are like the minimum safety or maximum minimum, bad terminology, right? Requirements, but not necessarily all the requirements, or are they actually above what the state of Nevada requires now?
Fred Olmsted, Nevada State Board of Nursing. They are exactly what and equal to what we require in Nevada. And I would be happy to provide you with the NRS. There's some phrasing differences For example, Nevada law requires the person be of good moral character. What does that mean? Well, the board has rules and regulations and policies. If you have a felony, you have to go before the board. And there's under the fingerprint, we get information. So we require good moral character. This requires that no felonies and certain misdemeanors can't be part of the multi-state privilege. Be happy to give you every NRS that corresponds with every one of those and walk you through every licensure requirement. For renewal, in Nevada, you have to attest that you are aware of safe injection practices. And so the kind of stuff like that is not here, but it's additional.
Well, I hope you'll understand a bit of my confusion if you'll go to my next concerns on page 4, starts at line 24, subsection O there. So it says state practice laws means the party states laws, rules, regulations that govern the practice of nursing, define the scope of nursing practice, and create the methods and grounds of imposing discipline. And then it goes on to say state practice laws do not include requirements necessary to obtain and retain a license. Now, is that a home state license or a multi-state license, except for qualifications or requirement of the home state? So if the home state has something different than our state, there's confusion there to me when I read that. What are we talking about? Because it doesn't clearly say. You're going to lose your license in Nevada, even if you have a multi-state license, if you haven't met all of the Nevada requirements. But then it sits there and says that state practice laws don't include anything more than what's allowed in the home state. And I think there's a conflict there. It's just one I'm trying to point out to you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Michael Hillerby. In this context, this is referring to when the term state practice laws is used within this act. What we will do is go find each of those and make some notes and get that to you if that's acceptable, unless Fred has an immediate answer off the top of his head, but I think that might be the cleanest. We'll go and find every reference to that. This only refers to when that term is used within the Compact Act. So we will find each reference to that and make some notes and get that to you in the
Well, I'm
committee.
just trying to be thorough because I've often said, and people have quoted it back to me, is that the English language is the most specific language on the planet, so we should try to use it to be as specific as possible. So I got a couple other questions, if the chair will allow me to continue.
Mr.
And
Daly, one more, and then we'll have to transition so we can have people that are
I
testifying.
actually got two important ones, but anyway. So page 12, line 42, the commission can make, well, let's go to that. So when we're talking about the powers of the commission now, and it says to promulgate uniform rules to facilitate and coordinate immediate, implement, and administration of the compact. The rules shall have the force and effect of law and shall be binding on all party states. So you're just talking about the rules within the compact, or are they making law in Nevada? So it seems to contradict a little bit. Obviously, precise language would be useful here, because the way I read that, it says that they'll have the force and effect of law and shall be binding on the party states. And I got a problem if they can do that.
Yes, sir. Fred Umstead, Nevada State Board of Nursing. The rules, as I understand it, and we'll certainly get back to you as a different understanding, the rules are, as Mr. Hillebrand mentioned, those are the kind of operational rules that the commission will determine about voting and dates and times, but they cannot create a rule that supersedes Nevada law. They cannot. And if that's not clear enough, then we're going to get it clear, and we'll get an interpretation for that.
I've heard you say that a couple times.
Yeah, well.
Language may not be exactly with what we're saying. Can I ask one final?
Mr. Daly, no, I'm going to transition. I'll ask that you connect with the presenters and get your additional questions answered. So we're going to go ahead and transition. I know we have people waiting in Las Vegas. Thank you so much to our presenters on the bill. Please, if those individuals that are wishing to testify in support would come to the table, both here in Carson City and up in Las Vegas, please fill all the seats. Mr. Gold, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed, remember we have limited to 4 minutes for testimony in support and in opposition and neutral, but make sure you state your name for the record and are concise. Go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I am the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We've heard about the Nurse Licensure Compact and what it will do. AARP members have an interest in the passage because it would create an expedited and less administrative burdensome process for nurses seeking license. We've heard about nurses already having to adhere to the existing rules and regulations under the compacts. We've heard about the minimum requirements and a fingerprint federal background check and having to follow the standards of care. But what this is really all about is patients and their access to quality care. We heard earlier, and we continue to hear in many hearings and across the state and in newspapers about the shortage of nurses and all medical providers in our state. Nurses are the front line of medical care, and we need to ensure we can safely meet the needs of our growing population. This is especially true in the rural parts of our state. By entering into the multi-state agreement, compact, we feel the access to primary care will be expanded and the patients will be the real winner. So AARP Nevada, on behalf of our more than 330,000 members across the state, strongly urge you to pass AB 18 that will improve access to good care and to strong nursing professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your written letter being part of the record. We'll go ahead and start over here on the left, just my left. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Justin Harrison with the Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce. I'll make my remarks fairly brief. We're here today in support of Assembly Bill 18. We believe this is an additional tool for the state and the board in order to help bring down the barrier of entry for nurses coming to the state. As was mentioned numerous times, there's a shortage of healthcare workers here in the state, including nurses, and we believe by doing so, we can help bring more nurses to the state and close that barrier. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jessica Ferrato here on behalf of the Nevada Nurses Association. We're here in support of the bill. I'll be very brief. We have a shortage in the state, and it's expanding as nurses age out of their careers. We have a shortage, especially in rural Nevada, and think that telehealth is something that is helping us as nurses in the rural parts of our state. We think that this will also help us in better access and to sort of close the loop in a lot of the needs that we have in telehealth. In addition, I think this helps if we have natural disasters, and so do our nurses. If we have a large event scale of something in southern Nevada or even in eastern Nevada, it would be helpful to be able to have some nurses from other states come across the state border easier. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next.
Yes, Chairperson Bustamante Adams. My name is Deborah Scott, and I did give you a letter that is part of the record. I come in support of AB 18, and a lot of you know me. I was the executive director for over 15 years of the Nevada State Board of Nursing, and I also sit on the NNA Legislative Committee. And so I come with, I think, the support of a lot of nurses to you. I do want to say this. The Board of Nursing, in conjunction with others, came 3 times, 1999, 2001, and 2003, for the original compact. I personally was not in favor of that original compact because the requirements for licensure were not up to Nevada standard. In 2012, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing said, why aren't more boards part of the original nurse licensure compact? And we said, because your licensure requirements are not high enough. And so we worked for 2 years with all of the executive directors of all of the nursing boards across the United States to come to some resolution about what those requirements must be. And that is what you have in the new Nurse Licensure Compact. It's called the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact. And in fact, the requirements for a multi-state license with the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact are more stringent than Nevada, because if you have a felony, you cannot get a multi-state license. Okay? So I come here in support. It's a way of meeting the needs of the patients of Nevada to have more access and to be able to allow the Nevada State Board of Nursing to actually regulate all of the nursing that occurs in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the legislative history. I know that Mrs. Carlton was here in 2001, so 99, okay. So that is helpful for the rest of us, so thank you. Next.
My name is George Ross, representing HCA Sunrise Healthcare. I come in support of the bill. I pray that the details that came up in the earlier part of the hearing will be worked out. Because this is, I think, an important step. We think an important step toward being able to recruit a sufficient number of experienced nurses. I would like to go back to the earlier presentation in which it was pointed out that, the higher experienced nurse level, say this properly, an awful lot of the nurses who are experienced and skilled are older, in the older quartile, older third, and they're going to be retiring in 10 years. They've got to be replaced. So the real nursing pressure and shortage that we face, especially at a high acuity hospital like Sunrise, is experienced nurses in those high acuity areas. And we believe this bill would help significantly in recruiting new nurses to come to Nevada. So we urge you to pass the bill, or if you have these items that you talked about that must be worked out, we beg that you and the board will be able to work them out. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can have anybody else that would like to testify in support, would you please come forth? Oh, Ms. Neal, you had a question for one of the panelists?
Yeah, but they just got up.
Oh, well, we can call them back. Who is it?
I don't know who's better able to answer it. I guess it would probably be Ross.
George, Mr. Ross, if you could come back to the table. And if there's any others in support, now would be the time before we switch.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question, and I'm not picking on you specifically, but you have the law degree. So I was reading the annual report by the NLC, which is this national or labor, whatever it is, compact. And there was actually some state attorneys who wrote an opinion challenging the compact, saying that it was a violation of state sovereign authority, and they claimed that NLC was an unconstitutional delegation of authority or police powers. So are you familiar with that? Because they say there was a written response back on the public website, but I haven't been able to find it. And I just felt kind of, happy that I wasn't crazy in trying to think that I saw those issues, because it was in the annual report that's on this National Council of the State Boards of Nursing. Are you familiar with that at all? Because I'd love to find it.
George Ross, Sunrise Hospital. I am, first of all, I'm not a lawyer. So I'm sorry. But secondly, I am not familiar with that, and hopefully your counsel or a counsel of the board may be, or they can look it up, but I really don't have any knowledge of that whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. I think that Mr. Olmsted can maybe help answer that question, so we'll if you can get back with Assemblywoman Neal on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we are going to transition to those in opposition. If you'd like to come forth. Is there, if there's anybody in Las Vegas, now would be the time to fill the seats. We have two other seats here, if anybody would like to come forth. Okay. Ms. Lockhart, you determine who would like to go first, yours or Ms. Mancini?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. My name is Marlene Lockhart, and I'm representing SEIU 1104. 1107. I just got fired. I was representing. It's been a long afternoon. Yes. We, appreciate very much, as Mr. Hillaby indicated, we had the opportunity to have a lengthy meeting with the State Nursing Board, and they were very accommodating and answered many of our questions and concerns that we had. We discussed them. Unfortunately, some of our concerns still remain, and President Mancini is going to go through some specifics of those concerns, but I did want to raise a couple of introductory issues. First, in Article 3, or excuse me, Article 1, that defines the purpose, and as was confirmed by the proposers of this legislation, if you go through the findings and declaration of purpose, a majority, if not all of those, are already being done by the State Board of Nursing. So we're not adequately answered why this bill is even necessary. We understand the overall philosophy about a compact, but our own State Board of Nursing provides those functions, as has been provided to you with the NRS related to each of the articles in this bill. Second, we have considerable concern with the creation of the commission itself. I have looked through, and this commission, as we read it, has enormous power. But the bylaws and the rules have not yet been determined. So they can penalize a member state, they can sanction, they can even hold the state accountable for damages if the state does not comply with the rules of the commission that we don't yet know what those rules are. So I feel like we've got the cart before the horse here. I would think that we would really want to take a look at what the actual language and the rules and the bylaws of this newly created commission will actually be. We don't even know what state it will exist in. So if we had an issue, there's a clause that we can comment in public hearing and appear, but where is it? What kind of travel expense? Where are we going for this? Our member, the Nevada Nursing Board, has one member, but then there is, the fiscal note says 0, but there's going to be transportation costs, costs for participation. There is a levy to the state. I think they mentioned $6,000 was the levy, but nowhere in this bill is that spelled out at $6. And if they don't have, this commission can buy property, can borrow money, can, I mean, the authority of this commission is fairly significant, and for us to enter into it, and for our nurses perhaps to have to travel somewhere to testify or appear before this body, and we share the Assemblyman's concern about the language that it would have the full force and effect and would supersede state law. That's what this bill says as it stands today. There are significant things in here that we do think have a fiscal impact, the section that you can issue subpoenas for hearings and investigations. And so the home state as we read this and interpret this, if a home state disciplines a nurse from another state and they go back to their home state or they go to another state, then the investigative costs, subpoenas, potential litigation are borne by us, which we would think would add additional cost if the complainant is now located in New York, across the country somewhere. And the language surrounding that is concerning. And there's, if otherwise permitted by state law to recover from the affected nurse the costs of cases resulting. Well, what kind of money are we going to have to spend to recover costs of investigations from a nurse who now is somewhere else in the country? So you can go through this bill, as I know you have, and just look at items that potentially have a price tag. But we're concerned that we lose our voice here, that if this commission, as outlined here, and I admit we don't know what all the responsibilities will be or what, but they're charged, as we read it, with implementing the compact. Well, if they're implementing the compact and the state doesn't comply, but yet their rules, as I've said, and their bylaws have not been, to my knowledge, maybe they're going to adopt the current existing compact bylaws and rules, but that's not in here of what's before you for you to actually see, unless I've missed something.
And can I ask you to bring that to a closure, your comments, so that we
Okay.
could, thank you.
There's more, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mancini?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Bustamante and members of the committee. I'm Sherry Mancini, President, SEIU Nevada. We represent currently about nearly 5,000 nurses that are working in either public or private sector hospitals all over the state of Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to give testimony on this bill. I would like to commend the nursing board for their willingness to work and have an open line of communication with us. We did have a productive meeting in which members of the board answered our questions and concerns. However, we still remain opposed to AB 18 and the ratification of the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact. Our interpretation has led us to our first and foremost objection, which is in regards to the issue of patient safety. As an organization that deals with working conditions of nurses on a daily basis, we take seriously the level of professionalism and commitment required to work as a nurse in Nevada. As per the Nevada Nurse Practice Act, Nevada nurses must complete 30 hours of continuing education courses, or AKA CEUs, in order to renew their licenses. In addition, all nurses must comply with criminal background check and fingerprinting requirements set out by state law. This is because Nevada demands best quality of care and to ensure our nurses continually stay up to date and cutting edge on health care. We had heard previously in regards to the home states are who maintain your continuing education or whatever your renewal requirements are. So, I mean, we heard that in South Dakota, you may not need to know bioterrorism, but certainly if you work in Las Vegas, you need to be having, or anywhere in Nevada, you need to be having a bioterrorism course and maintain your continuing education on that. The compact proposed by AB states Article 3 that such state background check requirements and other regulations only apply upon the nurse's initial licensure within the compact state. And we know that with the grandfathering clause that's in there, that basically you can be grandfathered in without even having a background check or being fingerprinted. So you won't even have to have that initial, let alone to have it continuing. So if you've obtained a nurse license in compact state, ratifying this compact would not be subject to the requirements in which you practice in Nevada currently. So while the bill attempts to tie the requirements of the nurse with a multi-state license where a patient is located at the time of care, the bill provides no mechanism by which the board can oversee and enforces a nurse's compliance with local laws if they choose to practice in another state. Exposes patients in Nevada to risks of nurses who have not met our local standards of care if they previously licensed in another state. We also, our interpretation is that if a nurse from another state wishes to practice in Nevada, they already can expedite the process. 5 days expediting a process, we heard previously about how osteopath board, it's like 30 to 45 days. 5 days is not an exorbitant amount of time. So the second issue is that one of the things that we really have a problem with is that if a nurse is disciplined in another state and comes to work in Nevada, we heard from the nursing board that there were 923 complaints alone in Nevada, and the average length of time was 100 days per investigation. So how timely do you think we're going to get information back in regards to a nurse who has had some kind of complaint against them? And the majority of them, whether they are founded or not, how many do you think are going to be reported in real time? And who makes the decision to whether it is an egregious act or not egregious enough to actually notify other compact states? Because then you're walking that fine line of is it egregious enough that we should suspend their license while they're in this 100-day investigation, but yet they're stating that out of all of the 923, the majority of them were unfounded. So we're losing control. It's hard enough to control what we already have, let alone let's add nurses from 10 other states to try to come in here and figure out how we're going to investigate someone who's now 5 states away from us or in South Dakota or somewhere to that effect. Ultimately, it's about patient care. And Assemblywoman Carlton, she brought up the fact that, we have someone in the hospital. It's not about, it takes this long, it's this or that. It's a person. There's a person there who deserves to have the best care. And we need to not go with, this is the bare minimum of what we require. We need to say, we need to have higher standards. We need to promote higher standards in nursing care so that we can attract good nurses here. If we really want to deal with the nursing issue, let's deal with staffing. Because I know of nurses that I have begged to get out of sign-on bonuses because they can't deal with the situations that they're put in that jeopardize their licensure here in this state. So we also have a study, I'm just going to be real quick. According to a study conducted by the University of Michigan in 2015, researchers found little evidence that the labor supply or mobility of nurses increased following the adoption of a compact in the nurse's home state, and no effect on labor force participation, employment levels, hours worked, wages, or the probability of working across state lines. The study concluded stating this reduction in licensing barriers does not appear to be a solution to an aggregate shortage of nurses. We have, I think they said that there was over 2,000 nurses licensed in this state. I'd be interested to see how many stayed here and how many left because they don't want to work in the environment that's been created here in our state. We need to think about the patients. We need to, ultimately, we want to raise the nursing standards, not keep it at the bare minimum because our patients in our community deserve it. That's why California is not in a nurse compact because their standards are too high. They will not lower their standards to be in a compact. And so why would we be any different? We want to improve our standards, not lower our standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mancini. I appreciate you being here. I know you had to rearrange some things, so thank you. And Ms. Lockhart, if you both have written testimony, I'd like to include that in part of the record. I know we didn't get to hear all your concerns, but I would like to include it so that we have it part of the record. So if you could give it to the committee secretary. Next, I'll take this beautiful young lady in the red. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Amber Lopez Lassiter, Political Director with the Clark County Education Association. We represent over 18,000 educators and licensed personnel. We also collectively have over 40,000 healthcare advocates that are part of our Teachers Health Trust. We are here in opposition of AB 18, and as touched on throughout this discussion, the lowest common denominator approach for standards certainly isn't sound policy when related to the licensure of RNs who have the expertise to provide quality care in life and death circumstances. It's problematic that this bill would surrender the state's authority to a multi-state authority. And lastly, also discussed here today, with our eyes always on quality care, it's exceptionally concerning that this bill language doesn't include any provisions that address scenarios where an RN from out of state who is under investigation and could slip through the cracks could in fact be practicing here in our state. Also want to echo what President Mancini said with the overarching message of it really comes down to patient safety. And it is our hope that after careful consideration, you each agree that AB 18 isn't sound policy for our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. Can I have you press the button right in front of you? Thank you.
There you go. Good afternoon. My name is Tamara Erickson. I'm an RN. I've worked at St. Mary's now for pushing 27 years, and I don't even know how that happened. During that time, I've got to see a lot of changes in a very exciting profession of nursing, and here I am today talking about something very important to me because nursing is important to me. As a registered nurse and a member of the National Nurses Organization Committee, I thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns regarding this bill. This bill, and I will keep this short, I'm not reading all the pages here. This bill, allowing nurses to practice across state lines, would negatively impact consumer protections for patients, standards for nurses, the ability of nurses to best advocate for their patients. Our current protection through the Nevada Board of Nursing can become diluted when we try to combine them with other states which may not have the same standards. Nevada's patients and nurses deserve better. That's pretty much a summary. I think everyone here has pointed out this very much some of the same facts that I would, some of our concerns, that we would not be raising the standards for education, the inability to sanction or revoke licensing deemed unsafe, that whole muddled mess is scary to me because I could potentially be working side to side with a nurse who is under review from another state who is actually unsafe. And I'm not talking about mending a pipe or fixing a hole in a wall. I'm talking about people's lives. This is big stuff to me. Lowest common denominator
Are
licensing.
we paused over here? We can't hear you.
I'm sorry? Who said that? Okay. Anyway, concerns about the licensings. Definitely, we need to keep Nevada standards up. Ironically, lack of funding to enforce this particular bill is interesting to me, that our Nevada board recognizes that there would be a loss of income by becoming part of the group, and yet at the same time, when you think about it, we have almost 50,000 nurses in Nevada. We joined 10 states. Let's say they have 50,000 nurses. Now we're 500,000 nurses. A Nevada Board of Nursing would be getting reports on with the same amount of workers in the board trying to monitor 500,000 nurses instead of our own 50,000. What could fall through the cracks in that scares me tremendously. And they won't even have the funding to be able to do it. Technology is wonderful, but they've increased their load, in essence, of monitoring, especially if there's a complaint brought against a nurse practicing in Idaho from Utah. We hear about it. Where's that nurse? Oh, she's practicing in Nevada, but she hasn't done anything wrong yet? Please, let's not go there. Okay, the numbers do speak for themselves in that way. To summarize, as a retiring RN and ironically an AARP member, I can appreciate the shortage that's coming into the nursing profession, but I honestly have to say that I believe there are ways to repair that issue for Nevada, and one of them is make Nevada worth coming to as an RN. I'm a strong supporter and have seen it happen in my nice long career, that patient ratios, offering nurses a safe place, and maintaining our high standard of practice. Thank you, Nevada Board of Nursing. Keeping those things in Nevada is important to the nurses here, allowing them a safe place to practice, being staffed appropriately. That's what brings nurses to Nevada. I know it brings them to St. Mary's. We're fortunate that we fought hard to have a contract negotiated ratio within our contract. So that's wonderful stuff. I thank you all for what you're doing. Please look hard, very hard at this bill and realize that there's lives involved, and it's important to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Erickson. I appreciate your service at St. Mary, and thank you for being part of the process. We're going to go ahead and go to Las Vegas. The beautiful young lady, it looks like blue or purple to me. Okay, yes, you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Bustamante Adams and members of the committee. My name is Katrina Alvarez Hyman. I'm a registered nurse with almost 8 years of experience. I represent SEIU, Nevada, and National Nurses Organizing Committee, and have worked all over Las Vegas. And I'm currently at St. Rose, which is the best one by far, being amongst the most adorable nuns that believe that nothing compares to the compassionate, intuitive care of our community's loved ones. I am your #1 advocate when it comes to wrongdoing with a patient's care. On the side, I go to a patient's bedside to right wrongs until common sense change is made for that patient and their families. What this bill does is undermine the true nature of what we do as nurses. We are the most trusted profession for more than a decade, so trust me when I tell you this bill will take away our advocacy and leave it in the hands of administration that is out of touch as to the complexities we face in each moment we care for our sick community. Our art is being in tune and having the time to touch, see, feel, smell our patients. I am here today to tell you how many people already have died or have been irreversibly harmed due to a lack of care from intentional short staffing everywhere here in Las Vegas and across the country. I already have enough trouble caring for my patients and getting out on time because there is no staff to help the nurses. We become the certified nursing assistant and the housekeeper, all at the same time while critically thinking how to keep you safe from not dying. Making laws by people that are not bedside nurses does not have the right to deem this into law. This law is not safe for me or my patients and their families. If this law were to pass, you and your loved ones will suffer from not getting the care that they need to survive their stay. No one wants to be sick, but we are the ones that are caring for them, and we do not need this bill to pass and bring more possibilities of harm. Please listen to us when we say this is not the right move. Of course, I believe that nurses should be able to be nurses nationwide without having to keep paying state fees, but they must be upheld to the same stringent vetting before laying their hands on your loved ones. We are a precious commodity, so please back off this bill so we can continue to provide the best care that we can, aside from the current short staffing issue that is pertinent in almost every hospital here in Nevada. I am here as your constituent telling you the travesties that occur every moment of every day in our healing hands. Walk with me and turn your vote to a no. Please tune into our story so that you understand the peril that we face each time we clock in. This is not a game to be messing with something so sacred, the healing arts of humans. Don't tell me that this bill is safe because it is the opposite. We are not going to accept what this bill brings because it is inherently wrong to pass such a not thought out law that will affect us all, healthcare professionals and the entire population of sick people. There's the good and the bad. You have the good nurses here before you today. We will not condone the bad ones to practice when they know they were unsafe and not re-educated or disciplined before they are considered to touch another life. I already have a huge issue with healthcare quality and compliance and the Nevada Board of Nursing as being understaffed and answering and investigating fast enough when I report that my patients are dying that day. I don't need an incompetent nurse to think he or she can flee their wrongdoings. This state already has limited resources. I know that firsthand as I have advocated for years to those that have been harmed. Technology is fantastic, but not when you are speaking of what a nurse actually does. Head to toe is where I'm looking, not a computer, but you. Today, I ask that you wake up and understand our struggle at the bedside as it is currently. Not staffing enough help on purpose for the profit of the facility is a disgusting practice that I have witnessed all my years working only here.
Ms. Alvarez, if I could have you wrap up.
Yes. This will be detrimental to healing our communities. I ask that you oppose this nurse licensure compact bill for the sake and safety of us all. Thank you, and please understand the devastating issues we face already. This ridiculous bill that obviously has none of our input needs to die or reflect these facts we present. I am here for you to hear this message that so many nurses could not be here with us today. Thank you for this time. I now stand open for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Thank you for your service at St. Rose. If you have written testimony, I'd like to include it in part of the record, so if you could leave it with staff there so we make sure we get the full testimony, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
will.
Next, the gentleman in the red, and if the facts have already been stated that about the concerns, feel free to say ditto, and if you have written testimony, we will include the entire testimony in the record.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bustamante Adams, and also to the room full of nurses that are here waiting, and some of them waiting to talk. I'm not going to give you any facts. I'm going to be very brief. My name's Tazo Schaefer. I represent the Working Families Party in Nevada. I'm also a constituent of Maggie Carlton in AD 14. I'm a retired businessman. I had a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. for many years. Dr. Luther Terry was a partner of mine. He was the Surgeon General of the United States. Dr. Frank Rose was also a partner of mine. He was the president of the University of Alabama and the chairman of the National March of Dimes. I know a little bit about public policy. I was associate dean of the College of Business and Public Administration at the University of Arizona. I also owned a lot of horses in my time, and I can tell a Trojan horse from a real horse. There was a lot of discussion here about nurses and accountability for nurses, and I think there's a question that I know Maggie Carlton has always asked is, what is the issue behind the law? If you're doing a law, what are you addressing? I think the business that this law is really in is not accountability for nurses. It's not the transportability of nurses' license across states. The bottom law is this whole shift of fiduciary duty away from clients towards investors and stockholders and the bottom line of profit. I think that if you pass this law and go in this direction, you will create a situation pretty similar to the teacher shortage you have, where you have 800 or so temporary, part-time, unqualified teachers teaching Spanish when they don't speak Spanish. You're going to have nurses from other states coming in that aren't qualified. When there's a core specification for qualifications, what that means is the least common denominator. And so Nevada, and I hear it from the nurses here, that they're very concerned about the quality of nursing and the quality of health care. They have the direct the most direct contact with the patients. So listen to them really closely on this. I think that basically what's inside the Trojan horse is a union-busting ideology that they want to weaken the bargaining power of the nurses and to create a situation where we can have just-in-time inventory of nurses where you can pull temporary contract employees from other states and even other countries possibly in the future, just as McDonald's and other companies have decided to do. No one will be full-time anymore. There won't be benefits. Wages won't be there to support quality nursing care. You have three considerations in any business endeavor, and that's cost, niche, specialty markets that you, skills that you provide, service and products, and then quality. And the nursing profession has specialties and it has quality care, and you don't want the person that's dealing with you in an emergency and taking care of you in the hospital to not be qualified. The costs to Nevada will be lowered to the owners of these companies and so forth, but the price to the citizens and the patients and the nurses in Nevada will be extremely high. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Thank you for participating in the process. I'll take these two young ladies here in Carson City. As I said, if your statements of concern have already been expressed, feel free to concise your message. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Bustamante Adams and members of the committee. My name is Donna Sandy. I'm an RN with 9.5 years experience at St. Mary's Regional Medical Center in Reno. I represent the National Nurses Organizing Committee and National Nurses United. Thank you for letting me express my concerns about this bill. Jobs. If the multi-state compact does what it says its purpose is, to improve availability and mobility of nurses across state lines, then this compact scheme essentially uses tax dollars to encourage out-of-state nurses to come in and take good jobs from Nevadans. The scheme also encourages a casual relationship between caregivers and the citizens of the state, whereby nurses from other compact states can move in and out of the state readily, so not ensuing consistent care for the patients in Nevada hospital. Why is the Nevada Board of Registered Nursing, funded by the Nevada nurses and taxpayers, planning on giving away our jobs? RNs in Nevada earn good wages and benefits as they provide a vital service to our communities. Wouldn't our tax dollars be better spent educating Nevada residents to get these good jobs, which diversify our economy and help uplift Nevadans? And to answer Assemblyman Brooks' question about a salary comparison, I found on the nursinglicensmap.com, the nursing salary for a nurse in Utah annually is $61,100, and in Nevada, it's $80,240. To continue, however, the available evidence suggests that the compact does not in fact achieve its intended purpose. In a working paper by the National Bureau of Economic Research last summer titled Labor Supply Effects of Occupational Regulation, Evidence from the Nurse Licensure Compact, Kevin Stang of University of Michigan and NBER and co-author Christina DePasquale of Emory University evaluated the impact of a compact that has eliminated cross-state licensing barriers for nurses in 25 member states. The researchers find that the compact, which began in 2000, adding additional states over the years, has had no statistically significant impact on employment levels, hours worked, earnings, and likelihood of working across state lines. Even with the licensing hassle out of the way, writes Anna Louie Sussman for the Wall Street Journal, nurses weren't moving to high-demand states, working across borders, putting in longer hours, or commanding higher wage. What this means is that according to the only recent credible evidence, joining the multi-state compact does nothing to improve mobility and supply. If that is indeed true, then this bill is in effect increases risks to nurses and patients and reduces state oversight resources, and all for nothing. I strongly urge you to reject the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony and being part of the process, Ms. Sandy. And if you can give your written comments to the secretary. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrella McGuire. I'm an RN with 28 years of experience, 16 years at St. Mary's Regional Medical Center in Reno. I'm a member of National Nurses United and National Nurses Organizing Committee. Thank you, Madam Chairman and Chairwoman and Assembly members for the opportunity to speak my concerns about this bill. I would like to quote the Assembly extracts from a joint Publica USA Today news article titled "Troubled Nurses Skip from State to State Under Compact." I do this to illustrate some of the more egregious situations that have occurred due to the multi-state compact. Nurse Craig Pesky was fired from a hospital in Wausau, Wisconsin in 2007 after stealing the powerful painkiller Dilaudid whenever the opportunity arose, state records say. In 1 3-month period, he signed out 245 syringes full of the drug, which is 9 times the average of his fellow nurses. Hospital officials reported him to Wisconsin nursing regulators and alerted police. 6 months later, Pesky was charged with 6 felony counts of narcotic possession, but by that time, he had used his special multi-state license to get a job as a traveling nurse at a hospital 1,200 miles away in New Bern, North Carolina. When I went to go for the job in North Carolina, I looked at the status of my license, and it was still active, said Pesky, 36, who was later convicted of 2 felony drug charges. That kind of surprised me, so I figured I would take it. The ease of Pesky's move illustrates significant gaps in regulatory efforts nationwide to keep nurses from avoiding the consequences of misconduct by hopping across state lines. While any state can make mistakes, in a single state license system, the errors impact one state, says Janelle Lee, head of Alabama's nursing board, which is not part of the compact. By comparison, when a compact state is slow to act or fails to share information, nurses suspected of negligence or misconduct remain free to work across nearly half the country, Lee said. Stephen Woodfin, a nurse anesthetist, surrendered his right to practice in North Carolina in January 2006 because of substance abuse. Even so, he was able to keep a clean multi-state license in Texas. Nearly 2 years later, at an Amarillo hospital, he passed out during a surgery, bleeding from a vein in his arm. The Texas Board of Nursing found he had abused the narcotic fentanyl. In September 2008, the board suspended him. Dana Hickman was suspended from practice in Texas in September 2006 after she administered undiluted vitamin K too quickly to a patient in a Dallas hospital. The patient died a short time later. The next year, Hickman was placed on probation in California because of the Texas discipline, but her multi-state license in Iowa remains clear. The citizens of Nevada deserve the highest protections possible when they are recipients of health care. The compact state bill fails to provide them with such protections. I strongly urge you to reject this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Appreciate it. Next, we'll go up to Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Bustamante Adams, and committee members. My name is Carrie Deaton, and I'm an RN. I've been a registered nurse in the state of Nevada for 30 years. I currently work at San Martin Hospital down here in Las Vegas in the emergency department. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you regarding my concerns about AB 18. My concerns are that the adoption of this bill would lead to abrogation of the state sovereignty, specifically that my registered nurse practicing within Nevada will not have to meet the stringent initial and continuing education standards that ensure the nursing workforce has consistently excellent educational preparation for practice. The Multi-State Authority Compact Agreement states that nurses must follow the Practice Act regulations in the state where they are practicing. There's no mechanism in place to require training or coursework on Nevada's Nurse Practice Act or other applicable regulations related to public health and safety responsibilities in Nevada. Multi-state compact nurses are only required to meet the continuing education or competency requirements from their home state. Some compact states do not require continuing education for their nurse license. In contrast, Nevada requires at least 30 hours of continuing education over 2 years and completion of a state-required bioterrorism course. If Nevada joins the compact, the Board of Nursing could not require or enforce these continuing education requirements with nurses from other states. Nevada nurses are not alone in these concerns. In 1999, the Kansas Attorney General wrote that the state could not legally join the compact, citing the following examples as to their concerns of lowering continuing education requirements for RNs in their state. If one compact state, for example, decided that a correspondence course in aromatherapy was all that was needed to be licensed, Kansas would be required to let those nurses in. Further, a multi-state compact authority would supersede Nevada's autonomy and control over the practice of nursing by allowing for closed meetings on topics that may be inconsistent with Nevada's open meeting laws. Given this, I urge the committee to reject this bill, AB 18. Thank you for my time and your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being part of the process. Next, and I'd like to wrap this up by 5. Is there, how many other people are there in Las Vegas there that want to speak?
3 more, Madam.
3. Okay, have them come to the
Chair.
chair. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Next, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bustamante. My name is Osborne Stone. I'm a retired military service member and a registered nurse of 36 years. I currently practice at Dignity Health here in Las Vegas. And I thank you all for the opportunity to speak here of my concerns about this bill. My chief concern is delegation of the Board of Nursing's authority to sanction or revoke the license of nurses practicing within Nevada. And also, I would like to state that the Board of Nursing really does not speak for me and the bedside nurses that deliver care to the patients in these facilities. Board of Nursing are administrators that essentially yield to hospital administration's demands. And as such, this bill is bad for practice. The purpose of Nevada Board of Nursing is protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare through effective regulation. As a registered nurse in the state of Nevada, I fully agree with that purpose, and that is why I'm here today, speaking against this bill. Though the proposed bill appears to allow the Board of Nursing to take action against the licensees of nurses practicing in Nevada, it is unclear whether the Board of Nursing would have the authority to sanction or revoke licenses issued by another state, or whether the Board of Nursing could merely prevent continued practice within its borders. Confusion could be created among consumers and employers relative to jurisdictional authority over licensees. Nurses who pose a danger to patients more easily will be able to move from state to state, and due to the negligence, incompetence, and criminal activity or chemical dependency should not be allowed to move to another compact licensure state and injure patients, or the vice versa. To test the effectiveness of the compact state coordination in ensuring RNs are not posing a danger, the ProPublica, which is an independent nonprofit newsroom that produces investigative journalism in the public interest, examined the disciplinary actions taken by 5 compact states, Arizona, Virginia, Texas, Kentucky, and North Carolina. They did this in recent years. And reporters found 4 dozen examples of nurses whose primary licenses remain clean for months longer after another compact state barred them from working there. They have ignored their patients' needs, stolen their patients' medication, forgotten crucial tests, and missed changes in their condition. These records show. This legislation fails to demonstrate by substantial evidence the need for this legislative initiative. There are neither scientific studies nor expert rulings that this extraordinary move to become a part of the licensure compact will serve the health and welfare and safety of Nevada residents. Welcome to the New World Order. This is the purpose of this overall movement in this direction. The purpose of this is they want to replace people like me and all these other nurses here who have dedicated their lives to the service of patients at the bedside. They want to replace us at the bedside with a robot. They want to replace us with a telemedicine nurse somewhere off in Nevada so as to deliver cheaper, underprivileged care. They don't know anything about sitting at the bedside, holding the hand of a patient like the one I held last night when I was working a 12-hour shift. But I refused to sleep because we need to be here. The voices of the nurses at the bedside need to be heard. This bill should not stand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. I appreciate your participation in the process. Next, and if I could have the other person come to the chair as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Elizabeth Bickle. I have been a registered nurse for over 10 years, and I currently work at St. Rose Hospital in Henderson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak my concerns about this bill. Having grown up in rural Montana, I think I have a little bit of a unique view as opposed to a lot of my more urban comrades as to what telemedicine actually involves. There are some wonderful advantages, but it also brings a set of really unique challenges. And with elderly family members who still live in rural areas, I think I can really speak to this. Compact agreements will allow the practice of nursing across state lines using information technology. Healthcare corporations increasingly use telephone triage. Advice and consultation is a means of controlling patient access and flow to healthcare, as well as chronic disease management. There are numerous pitfalls based on this form of technology-driven care. Unfettered use of information technology, which is generally based on rigid standardization of care, overrides the RN's independent professional judgment. It has a chilling effect on the RN's ability to advocate for her patient and depersonalizes the RN relationship with her patients. Most of what the information I get from my patients, if I'm looking at someone through a computer screen, I can't see them clearly. I can't smell what their breath smells like. I can't touch their skin. I have information, but I don't have a full picture. To quote the Center for Health Ethics at the University of Missouri, but with the technology, there is discovered a degree of depersonalization as science is increasingly favored over art. For the healing encounter to attain its ultimate goal of patient benefit, there must be a carefully balanced coalition of knowledge, clinical skill, and effective communication. But there is a fourth ingredient that can only be discovered in the intimacy and trust of shared personal interaction. That ingredient is personal awareness and touch that secures trust and reflects commitment to an ideal. Some have argued that healthcare requires pastoral as well as technical skills, art as well as science, and that the present healthcare culture, focusing on research and evidence-based medicine, is moving away from intimacy. Telehealth and telemedicine as new and innovative technology may encourage depersonalization and diminish the trust and intimacy that defines the relationship between patients and their healthcare providers. NNUNNOC is deeply concerned that a nurse licensure compact would be detrimental to advocating for and ensuring the appropriate nursing resources necessary to meet healthcare needs of all citizens of Nevada.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony. Next. And I think then we have one more person, right, that wants to come to the table. I counted 3. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Is there
Is there one more? If there's one more, then I'd ask that person to come to the table now. Nope, that's it?
I'm the last one.
Okay, wonderful. Then we're going to switch to neutral after this. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairman Bustamante Adam and members of the committee. My name is Shirley Sludecker, and I have practiced nursing in Las Vegas for the last 30 years. And I started here, well, actually, for 30 years. I started working here in 1970, and I retired in 2002. I was the head of the ICU at Sunrise for a number of years. I then went back to doing bedside nursing. So I loved bedside nursing. And I am very proud of all the nurses that spoke here today who talked of their patients. They never once really talked about themselves. And I am here to talk for them. The hospitals do not care what happens to their nurses. We must reiterate that. I know that because I was a member of administration in hospitals in this city. We are treating our nurses like commodities. This bill treats our nurses like they are oranges. If I want to buy an orange to make orange juice and I go to Smith's and they're $1.39 a pound, I'll just go down to Albertsons because I can get them for $1 a pound because it doesn't matter, I'm making orange juice. But if I want to take care of patients, I do not go to the lowest denominator to find a nurse. I find a good nurse who is prepared to take care of patients. And that is what we have with the present licensure here in the state of Nevada. Why would we want to dilute it with nurses who are not prepared the same way our nurses are? So we have good nurses, and we have methods of taking care of nurses who are not good nurses, and so we do not need anything else. Right now, we have a system that is working, so why change it? And this state, and we are living in a time of politics as well as just nursing, and we know the political climate is anti-union, it is anti-employee, and this bill would make it easier to replace these nurses if they want to go on strike, which they may want to. If they have a disagreement with their employer, they might want to go on strike, and this bill would make it easier for their employers to replace them instantaneously and give them very little bargaining rights at the table. So I thank you very much, and I hope you do not pass this bill and recommend that it is denied passage in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schudecker, and thank you for participating in the process. We'll actually now switch to neutral. If there's anybody here in Carson City like to testify in neutral, anybody up in Las Vegas that would like to testify in neutral? Seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on AB 18. Next, we will switch to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience here in Carson City that would like to provide public comment? Anybody in Las Vegas? Seeing none, then I'd like to go ahead and we'll adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is this Friday, February 10th at 1:30 p.m. Thank you so much.